Defrosted Desires by Black authors. When anthropologist Zara Dunbar sets off on a luxury expedition to Antarctica, she anticipates a routine research mission amidst breathtaking icy vistas. What she doesn't expect is Julian Black, her enigmatic and alluring expedition partner, who harbors a dark secret and an inexplicable need for her blood. As they become ensnared in a web of personal ambition, forbidden desires, and life-or-death stakes, Zara must confront her unawakened passions, ruthless competition, and the chilling truth behind Julian's obsession, an obsession that could simultaneously save and shatter her. In an unforgiving landscape frozen in time, will love defrost the barriers between their hearts, or will Julian's shocking motives drive them apart forever? Chapter 1. Zara's Unfamiliar Territory. The moment I stepped aboard the luxury expedition ship, the chill of the Antarctic air brushed against my skin, sharp and awakening. I could taste the salty sea on my lips, a reminder that I was standing at the edge of unfathomable depths, both physically and metaphorically. The vastness of ice-blue water stretched out like a promise or a threat beneath us, and the monochromatic horizon seemed to blend seamlessly with the clouds, a celestial swirl of white and gray. My excitement and trepidation twisted together, creating a knot in my stomach. This was my chance to make a name for myself, to prove to my peers in academia that I belonged among them, not just as an observer, but as an equal. I was here to study the rare human artifacts embedded in the frozen past, to unveil stories long thought buried. No one knew the depths of my determination, nor how much I had sacrificed to be on this ship. I caught my breath, digging my heels into the polished deck, the shimmer of it reflecting my hopes for discovery, while concealing the abyss of self-doubt lurking beneath. "Welcome aboard," a voice boomed, cutting through the salty breeze. I turned to see a tall figure, draped in an elegantly tailored navy parka, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the frosty wind. "Thank you," I replied, straightening my spine. This was it. I was not just Zara Dunbar, a junior anthropologist with dreams too audacious for a woman of my stature, but a pioneer eager to carve out my own path. I held out my hand, and the man stepped forward with a grace that seemed almost magnetic. Julian Black. He took my hand, warm and firm, yet there was something elusive in his gaze, as if he were assessing the very essence of who I was. "I've heard much about your research." "Good things, I hope," I shot back, determined to keep the conversation light, despite the rapid flutter in my chest. "Mostly," he smirked, and something inside me piqued at that. Was it encouragement or doubt cloaked in charm? As we settled into the ship's main lounge, a dazzling space infused with soft golden light and angular woodwork, I found the decor contrast oddly dissonant with the landscape outside. Inside was a world of warmth and vibrancy, plush seating, and the scent of spiced chai wafting, calling to my senses. Out beyond the glass walls, the unrelenting stark beauty of glaciers hung in a dreamlike haze. "Care for a drink?" he offered, tilting his head towards the bar. "I thought you'd never ask. Black coffee, please," I replied, keeping my tone light yet couldn't help but note the sly glimmer in his eyes. As Julian moved away to the bar, I could almost hear the hum of anticipation ripple through the room. A few of our fellow guests huddled in muted clusters, expectant and curious, their murmurs threaded with whispers of adventure. The weight of being on this voyage wasn't just mine alone. It seemed to hang like an atmospheric pressure, unifying us in a collective, uneasy excitement. "What's your focus in anthropology?" Julian returned, his hands expertly balancing a steaming mug and a glass of something amber. "Artifacts. I study the way human cultures interact with their environments through material. You know, how objects convey identity and purpose." "And you think things have purpose?" he challenged, grinning as he leaned against the bar, his posture relaxed yet commanding, every bit the man confident in his own skin. "I think objects possess stories, and stories elaborate the human experience," I attempted, leaning in, pulling my focus away from the magnetic pull of his presence. What about you? A silver-tongued charmer in the boardroom, but a rugged adventurer at heart? He chuckled softly, giving me a glimpse of those tantalizing dimples and the lightness of his laughter. I'm a believer in power and legacy, and right now, I've found myself anchored to a journey that holds all the potential for change. Change, I repeated, wrapping my fingers around the warm ceramic mug he had handed me. In what way? Before he could respond, a group of guests strolled over, chattering animatedly about their own expectations for the trip. I could feel Julian's gaze on me, an energy crackling in the air that mingled easily with the warmth of the room, the way fire might meet ice at the cusp of winter. "Hey, Zara, isn't it?" a woman exclaimed, her voice bright and exuberant. "I heard you're our resident expert on ancient civilizations." "A bit too generous, but I'd gladly take the title," I smiled, grateful for the distraction. "We knew you'd keep us entertained at dinner with stories of your travels," she continued, nudging her companion, who nodded appreciatively. Julian stood a few steps away, an amused observer of this light-hearted exchange, his dark eyes flaring briefly with determination, perhaps assessing this potential threat to our initial connection. "Just wait for the ancient curse stories. It might keep you awake at night," I quipped, easing into the repartee. Laughter erupted, a fizz of camaraderie that warmed the air. For a heartbeat, I forgot my earlier doubts and unease. But as the conversations danced around me, I could feel Julian's gaze growing intense, as if he were waiting for something, an opening perhaps, or maybe a chance to pull me into his orbit fully. "Speaking of adventures, are you up for an expedition tomorrow?" Julian suggested, sidling up as the group slowly drifted away. "Isn't that the point of this journey?" I teased, though a hint of wariness wove through me. His eyes narrowed slightly, captivating yet grave. "An expedition is all well and good, but I'm talking about something far deeper." He swallowed hard, his expression darkening. "I have plans, a journaling of ice if you will, and I want you there." "To study ice? Sounds thrilling," I shot back, savoring the drama swirling between us like a tempestuous wind. His laughter was like music, but the tone shifted, laced with an edge that sent shivers down my spine. "You'd be surprised, Zara. Ice carries both danger and beauty." "Like the people we meet on this odyssey?" I challenged, arching an eyebrow. "Exactly. Intrigued yet?" I hesitated, feeling the jagged edges of attraction tempered with alarm. "Intrigued and a bit suspicious. What's really motivating you, Julian Black?" I pressed, my heart racing as I probed into complexities beyond his charming demeanor. The warmth of the room faded, replaced with the chill of unspoken truths. His gaze darkened, shifting ever so slightly. "You'll find out soon enough," he offered cryptically, his smile receding, leaving an unsettling knot in the air. Suddenly the soft melody of a haunting tune filtered through the lounge. A black-haired pianist sat reverently at the grand piano in the corner, drawing everyone's attention with the rich notes that danced in the shimmering ambiance. "Shall we?" Julian offered, extending a hand. The weight of unknowing hovered, but I accepted, as drawn to him as the notes lured us closer to the music. The smooth wood beneath my fingertips throbbed with potential as I moved toward him, enlivened by the surface tension we'd built between us. In that moment, I surrendered to something wildly unpredictable, an emotional plunge into the deep. "Tell me you're not just another handsome distraction," I teased, lowering my voice as we prepared to blend with the rhythm. "I could say the same about you," he replied, mirroring my tone, his eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. But what fun would that be? As the music cascaded around us, filling the space with life and rich potential, I grappled with something more significant than the simmering chemistry between us. I had ventured into unfamiliar territory, indeed a world of discovery, not just for the past, but for my own heart leaping dangerously close to the edge. "Promise me something, Zara," he murmured, his voice low against the rapture of the piano. "What's that?" "Promise me you'll embrace this journey, every part of it, even the unknown." With the sound of resonating notes, I looked into Julian's serious eyes, knowing it wasn't merely the adventure ahead that beckoned me, but the chance to unveil all that lay uncharted within myself. A revelation that could change everything I believed. "All right," I breathed, the promise between us taking form. An unbreakable thread weaving together ambition, desire, and the perilous unknown. The ship rocked gently beneath us, a promise of greater tides to come. I felt alive, wrapped in the thrill of what it meant to truly venture into the depths, rather than skim the surface. We would face this experience, the risks, the revelations, together. Chapter 2. First Impressions of Julian. The ship creaked in a rhythm as old as time, the sound mingling with the distant crackle of ice and the smell of salt water. A sharp wind slapped against the deck of the Aurora, biting a little deeper every time it gusted. Standing with my arms crossed, I stared out at the spine of icebergs lining the horizon. Translucent giants that glowed a surreal blue against the obscured sun. In this moment, it felt like I was neither here nor there. The weight of my ambition felt heavier suspended above the thawing landscape. The drill for icebreaker operations was mandatory, and frankly, tedious. My fellow passengers wearing bright orange survival suits that screamed of practicality, clustered in groups, chatting excitedly. Their laughter danced over the sharp winds, a melody of connection I couldn't quite grasp. I could feel the determined, sleek lines of my own navy jacket corseting me far too tightly against the burgeoning chill. "Zara," a voice broke through my fog of introspection, dragging my gaze to the tall, intriguing figure at the ship's prow. Julian Black leaned against the railing, the breeze lifting the edges of his jacket as if trying to pry him free from its grasp. How could someone look so effortlessly refined amid practicalities? A dimple carved itself into his cheek when he caught my eye, his lips curving into a smile that flickered with mischief, igniting an unexpected warmth in the cold air. "Is that how you're supposed to look during a drill?" "I might just faint," he teased, crossing the distance in long strides that seemed both effortless and purposeful. "You must have mistaken me for someone who cares about the ship's uniformity," I shot back, an involuntary smile tugging at the corners of my lips. Besides, I don't think they issued me a stunning look for this occasion. "Just say the word, and I'd be happy to purchase a sparkly life jacket for you." He leaned closer, the scent of cedar and something almost sweet lingering in his aura, setting off a strange comfort and excitation in my stomach. I rolled my eyes, trying to push away the flutters rising against the background of rough ice. Given the dangers of this expedition, the only sparkle I need is ice. "You're not one for small talk, I see." A hint of playfulness danced behind his voice, and I couldn't ignore the way his deep timbre vibrated just slightly in my chest. "I prefer meaningful conversations over idle banter," I said, keeping my tone aloof, but the corners of my mouth betrayed me, nearly lifting in amusement. "Then let's speak meaningfully." He stepped back slightly, creating distance while still holding my attention captive, framed by waves of swirling white mist. His dark eyes locked onto mine, earnest and steady. "What drives your ambitious spirit? What will you conquer while we're out here battling nature?" "Conquer? Perhaps that's too grand for an anthropologist." I looked away, my fingers fiddling nervously with the hem of my sleeve. It was too soon to expose the depth of my dreams, the layers of pressure I carried like bricks. "I study human resilience, Julian, the way we adapt when faced with uncertainties. It's fascinating and worth exploring." "Ah, so you're an explorer bent on conviction. Interesting." Julian's voice lingered on the word, drawing it out like a dramatic plot twist. The ice beneath our feet shifted slightly at that moment, the soft groaning before it cracked, a fresh reminder of danger, of impermanence. "What's interesting is your ability to throw out a compliment and make it feel like an interrogation," I challenged, my heart racing as the subtext weaved its way around us. He chuckled, the sound rich and deep, enough to pull me closer, despite the uneasiness creeping in. Just curious to see how a mind like yours works, Zara. You're not ordinary. You know that, right? Ordinary is a safe space with quiet fallacies, I quipped back, suddenly philosophical, earning a raised eyebrow from him. What about you? An enigma on your own? His expression shifted, the hint of something darker passing through his bright demeanor. I'm just a man trying to step out of the shadows, waiting patiently for meaning to present itself. A charged silence fell between us, reminiscent of the electric air before a storm. I could hear the sharp intake of breath around us, the world momentarily dulling as I felt that thread stretching in the space where our understanding turned intimate. "Time for the drill," shouted a voice, rupturing the tension. I turned to see the crew beckoning us to form a line, my heart hammering with yet another kind of urgency. Duty hung heavy on me, but there was also an undeniable thrill that surged unexpectedly. "Let's make this meaningful," Julian exclaimed, and I could have sworn I saw an earnest invitation in his gaze. As we gathered with others, I could sense his presence close, the heat radiating from his body, almost palpable against the chill. He stood next to me, our arms nearly brushing. The instructor was shouting instructions as we learned the mechanics of the icebreaker. Wires and lifelines were interspersed with the explanations, woven together like the many tales we all tarried on this voyage. "If this ship doesn't sink, maybe we should start our own anthropological study of clumsy sailors," Julian whispered, his voice a mere breath against my ear, creating a warm rush down my spine. I suppressed a laugh, trying to keep a straight face as he continued. "I can see them tripping over themselves by the second hour. It's all about survival. Who needs to study clumsy sailors when we have you around? You're the most comedic disaster I've met in a while." My tone ferreted out the corners of a smile, the thrill of repartee igniting with each playful exchange. Suddenly, a commotion erupted in the crowd. A passenger had lost grip of their life vest, crashing it against the railing and sending a clamor of laughter across the deck. The joviality swirled, momentarily easing the frost that had lain heavy in the air. "Behold, evidence that science does have practical applications," Julian called, gesturing grandly to the vests and the thriving raucousness of the crowd. "Case in point, humans in their natural habitat. Or the natural selection of clumsiness," I shot back, smirking, my heart lighter. By the time we were done with the drill, the cold had begun to nuzzle back into my bones, reminding me of the sheer power of our surroundings. I was grateful for the thrill injected through our light-hearted banter, even as it felt reminiscent of the swirling blizzards outside. "Feel free to study me all you want," Julian remarked, his tone shifting slightly as we stepped away from the group. "I promise you won't find a more fascinating subject." "Oh, please, indulging your ego isn't exactly on my to-do list," I teased, but I still felt a magnetic pull between us. The ice beneath the ship may have been an unyielding force, but here in this moment, we were both pliable, caught in the warmth rising from deep within the depths of the frozen world. As we took a moment, I met his eyes again, and that undeniable spark flickered anew, igniting something magnetic. The space, once filled with uncertainty, felt charged and real. "Just so you know," Julian said, leaning in slightly, his breath warm against the rush of icy air, "this isn't just a drill, Zara. There are fleeting moments, chances given, and I just have to ask, what are you willing to risk to discover what lies beneath your ambitions?" I hesitated, battling the earnestness of his demand, the weight of my convictions, and the pulse of connection that teetered at the edge of something profound. The icy exterior masked depths far deeper than any iceberg could show, but it was there, intriguing, tantalizing. "Maybe I'm ready for more than I've ever imagined," I murmured, feeling the words dance on my tongue, caught in the tantalizing space that stretched infinitely between us. Julian's gaze narrowed. A terrifying sense of both excitement and danger blossomed into something far grander. Our paths had begun to intertwine, and as much as I fought it, My heart leaned into the pull of uncharted territory. "Then let's figure out the depth of this together," he replied, firm and unwavering, the promise echoing from beneath the surface, unlocking a wave of potential that sent tremors of excitement coursing through me. As the drill concluded and the icy landscapes loomed beyond, a whole world of discovery opened before us, echoing the icebergs hiding treasures below. In Julian's confident stride, in the warmth of unwritten possibilities, I felt a new ambition rising within me, one that was bound to shape far more than my academic pursuit alone. Chapter 3: Trapped in Ice. The ship groaned beneath me, a massive steel beast entombed in a world of ice and unyielding cold. The biting wind whipped across the deck, howling like a lost soul searching for solace, while snowflakes danced through the air, swirling like chaotic thoughts in my mind. Once a sanctuary of discovery and excitement, the expedition ship had transformed into a claustrophobic cage, the walls closing in as the sun slipped behind slate-colored clouds. It was strangely beautiful, the icebergs looming like ancient sentinels. Their crystalline structures refracted light into muted rainbows, but inside me, conflict brewed like a tempest. I tucked my scarf in tighter, shivering not just from the cold, but from the weight of uncertainty. Outside, nature showcased its overwhelming might, while inside, we battled our own ferocious storms. "Zara!" The yell cut through the fabric of my thoughts. It was Julian, his voice a silken thread speckled with urgency. "Get in here. You have to see this." I hesitated, my heart thumping like a wild animal, caught between my desire for him and the growing dread that seemed to suffocate our every interaction. With a careful steadiness, I made my way back inside. The common room was alive, a cacophony of voices, all nervously whispering their fears, and the ship's crew muttering about shifting ice and weather patterns. Julian stood in the middle of the room, exuding a magnetic presence that drew everyone's gaze. The chaos surrounding him felt almost secondary to my awareness of him. His sharp features were animated, the intensity of his dark eyes compelling even in this storm of uncertainty. "Here," he said, grabbing my wrist, his skin warm against the chill of the room. "Look." He pointed toward the large window that overlooked the sweeping white desert. I leaned in, our shoulders almost brushing, but it was the heat between us that made the temperature feel unseasonably warm. Outside, the horizon had morphed into a brilliant swirl of gray and white, a swirling tempest of ice threatening to consume everything in its path. The wind howled insistently, flaring my senses even further. "It's incredible," I murmured, but my voice felt small in the grandiosity of it all, a remnant thought glossed over by the looming storm. "Isn't it?" Julian's tone was teasing, yet there was an underlying tension that pulled taut between us. "You wanted a real adventure, didn't you? This is it." Finally tearing my gaze from the vortex of ice, I turned to him, my heart racing. "This is a bit much, don't you think? We're stuck, Julian. This isn't exactly what I signed up for." His eyes softened, his lips curling into a half-smile. "Ah, but there's excitement in the unknown, Zara. Embrace it. Fear is just adventure that's too close for comfort." "Comfort is overrated, but I can't help questioning your definition of adventure," I said, tone sharp yet playful, and he reacted, his laughter ringing out and stoking the fire that simmered between us. "You'll thank me later," he said, his voice low, and for a heartbeat, it was dangerously intimate. "For now, let's see how the crew handles this little challenge of nature." The energy in the room pulsed with tension, not just from the impending storm outside, but from the conversations sparking around us. I could see the crew exchanging worried looks, an air of panic nipped at the edges of their chatter, creating an undercurrent that charged the atmosphere. "Great," I sighed, my sarcasm draping over me like a thick cloak. "A team of experts, and we're trapped in a floating hunk of ice. What could possibly go wrong?" "Just that," a voice chimed in from behind me, and I turned to confront Elise, our ship's biologist. She flashed her bright smile, the one that lit up the dimmest corners and always seemed to lighten the mood. But wait, I think we're all about to find out just how brave we can be. Interesting choice of words, I replied dryly. Just then the ship lurched to the side, sending drinks sliding from the tables. My heart raced as the common room erupted into startled gasps. Amidst the chaos, Julian gripped my hand, his fingers warm and steady, grounding me as the ship swayed once more. "Hold on," he barked, eyes fierce as he pulled me closer. I found myself unnaturally captivated by his dominance in chaos, the commander in the storm. When the ship steadied, the room fell silent. I glanced around, catching sight of various expressions: fear, anxiety, and an unexpected thrill sparking behind closed lips. We were always taught to expect the worst, yet here we were, on the brink of something monumental. "What do we do?" someone asked from the crew, still panting slightly after the ship's sudden movement. "Reassess," shouted Gregory, the ship's captain, a robust figure, an anchor amidst turmoil. "Everyone get to your stations, maintain order. We'll need to think strategically." I looked at Julian, who met my gaze with an intensity that made my stomach flutter. "Don't worry," he assured me, his voice husky. "We'll get through this." "Of course," I said, allowing uncertainty and excitement to intertwine inside me, just like you promised. We were soon back at the window, over the chaotic murmurs of the crew. Outside, the landscape seemed to shift, pushing us forward into the unknown. But there was also a tension between us as we shared the moment, a simmering understanding that our connection had been forged in both uncertainty and attraction. "Zara," Julian's voice broke through my scattered thoughts, pulling my attention. "Do you ever feel like everything happening is some intricate dance? It all depends on how you move through it." "Are you implying I should just sway with it, like we're waltzing atop an ice cap?" I shot back, the humor escaping before I had time to filter. "Something like that," he replied, amusement dancing in his eyes. Just as Julian leaned closer, ready to respond, an ear-piercing crack echoed through the ship. The vessel shuddered violently, and I stumbled back, heart racing. The ice had shifted, the boundaries of our sanctuary now frail and uncertain. The crew scrambled for stability, voices raised in urgency as Julian pulled me closer, his body radiating warmth in contrast to the impending peril outside. My heart hammered not just from adrenaline, but from the bond that thrummed between us, more palpable than the icy air that enveloped us. "Stay close," he murmured, a command wrapped in the velvet of concern. "I will," I replied, caught off balance by the softness in his voice. As the chaos unfolded around us, something ignited within me, a fierce resolve to confront not just the storm outside, but the tempest already brewing between us. Elise interrupted, eyes wide and frantic. "We need everyone to stay calm. If we work together, we can navigate this." Julian's hand moved to my lower back, a protective gesture that sent warmth coursing through me, grounding my racing thoughts amid the turbulent clamor. "Okay, let's harness this together," I declared, louder than I intended, but needing to assert some sense of control over the moment. We can't let fear dictate our actions. "Look who's suddenly brave," Elise quipped, smirking. "What's the magic phrase, Zara?" I shot her a look, one part frustration and one part amusement. "I simply refuse to be trapped in here," I said, and we all exchanged glances, a silent pact forming amidst the winter storm pressing relentlessly against us. With Julian by my side, the weight of uncertainty stirred both dread and exhilaration within. The ship groaned again, ice shifting ominously. But as chaos swirled, like the storm outside, I felt a strange certainty forming. Whatever challenge lay ahead, we were in it together. I turned to Julian, and with certainty I stated, "I'm ready for whatever's next." He smirked, vibrant and alive with a feral energy that made everything around us feel like a game about to tip into exhilarating danger. Then, let's dance. And together, we prepared to navigate the storm, both outside the ship and within our tumultuous hearts. Chapter 4. Fascination with Darkness. I stood in the dimly lit galley of the Antarctic expedition ship, the wood glistening with frost from the condensation of our breath. The hum of machinery provided a constant background buzz, a mechanical heartbeat between the walls of polished steel. As I stirred the thick, rich cocoa, sweet and slightly bitter, a perfect concoction to stave off the chill, I felt the weight of the moment pressing upon me, filling the air with an unspoken tension. "Here, let me," Julian said, slipping into the space beside me with an ease that made my heart race. He leaned close, his warm breath mingling with the steam rising from the mixing bowl. He took my hand, guiding it to the hot metal, his fingers brushing against my wrist, sending sparks cascading down my arm. "You're too delicate for the cold," he murmured, his eyes dark pools of liquid night. There was something wicked in his gaze that made me shiver for reasons I couldn't quite grasp. "I'm more resilient than you think," I replied, struggling to keep my tone steady as our forearms brushed. I could feel the rush of my pulse echoing in my temples. And besides, I signed up for this trip, didn't I? I seek the uninviting challenges of exploration, both in the field and out here in the world. Is that a challenge, Zara? He laughed lightly, but there was a share of something deeper, something potent weaving itself through his words. Because I thrive on those. His charisma was irresistible, woven into every glance and subtle grin. Yet beneath the charm, I could sense a buried tension, as if an unseen storm was brewing, just beneath the surface of our playful banter. I had always sought to understand the intricacies of the human psyche, but with Julian, I often felt as if I were staring into the depths of an enigmatic abyss. "Don't act like I'm some kind of fragile flower," I shot back, rolling my eyes, but the playful lightness in my tone cracked under the strain of charged emotions. "I can very well handle whatever darkness you may throw my way." "Is that what you think?" he asked, his voice a low rumble that reverberated within me. "What if that very darkness will consume you?" Before I could respond, the door swung open, unleashing a rush of cold air and laughter. It was Tessa, a fellow researcher, with a bright smile and a coffee-stained apron, followed by Cole, a wiry, bespectacled engineer, his hair a frizzy mess. The duo's dynamic was a constant source of hilarity aboard the ship, their playful teasing often diffusing the tension hanging in our air. "Are we interrupting another intense, let's undermine each other moment?" Tessa tossed an easy grin our way, her voice bright, like a beam of sunlight breaking through clouds. Julian's gaze flicked toward them, a shadow crossing his features. "Just discussing the merits of courage in the cold," he replied with an ease that disturbed me. "Neither of you has the courage to drink the last of this cocoa," Cole exclaimed, leaning against the counter with mock seriousness. "Zara, are you going to let him slurp it all by himself? Watch that cocoa slurping. I could be armed to the teeth," I said with a grin, but my words hid an emotion I dared not voice fully. My laughter mingled with the others, yet the tension remained, whispering in the corners of my mind. I watched Julian from the periphery. His handsome exterior held secrets I could not unravel. His hidden layers called to me, just as the frozen world outside the ship's walls beckoned towards discovery and adventure. But lurking beneath his charm, I sensed the darker motivations driving him, the very shadows that haunted his enigmatic smile. What lay beneath the irresistible allure? The evening wore on, my laughter still echoing but hardly reaching my heart. After several rounds of their light-hearted jabs, Tessa turned to me with a frown. "What's wrong, Zara? You've been quieter than usual." "She's just silently judging me." "You know how she is," Julian interjected, chuckling lightly. "Oh, please," I shot back, rolling my eyes. "We all know your charm could rival a blizzard when it wants to." "Just because you can mesmerize with charm doesn't mean I'm falling for it. Charm is merely a distraction," Julian replied smoothly, leaning closer, his breath a wisp of warmth against the chill of the room. "It's how one handles the realities of life. Don't you agree?" Tessa raised an eyebrow, bemused. "Sounds a bit like manipulation, doesn't it?" "Not manipulation, just strategic persuasion." Julian's gaze never left mine, and I felt his words pressing against my chest. I knew his sincerity, and I could draw the line between truth and subterfuge. I had been trained to read the intricacies of human interaction, yet his warmth paralyzed my reason. Could be, I said, biting my lower lip, desperate to deflect. But some strategies can be reckless. Julian stepped back, his shoulders relaxing as he regarded me with a profound intensity. Reckless can be exciting. I opened my mouth to respond but found myself unsure of the words. The moment hung in the air, thick with unspoken meanings and desires, charged like electrical wires. My instincts warned me of the potential dangers, yet I felt an urge building within, a pull I couldn't ignore. "Are you all going to stand around and stare at each other like fawns in headlights?" Cole interrupted, raising his hands in mock confusion. "Or are we going to dive headfirst into a serious game of trivia?" "Let's do it," Tessa said, catching the buoyant energy. But I remained glued to my spot, aware that the shadows in Julian's gaze had only deepened. That night turned into a whirlwind of laughter and playful banter as we navigated the depths of obscure facts, cheers echoing off the steel walls like wind howling through a funnel. Yet even amidst the fun, I found myself sidelined between Julian's alluring intensity and the thrill pushing up against the borders of our little group. With each antic my heart raced, not entirely sure if it was jubilation or recognition of the emerging feelings I couldn't wrap my literary mind around. Some hours later, conversation waned, and the others made their exit, piecing together some semblance of a sensible night's rest. I lingered, clearing the remnants of our gathering as the noise faded, the atmosphere thick with possibilities. "Zara." It was Julian stepping closer again, his presence radiating an undeniable magnetism. "You can't avoid the inevitable." "I'm not avoiding anything," I shot back, my voice tight, but I could feel my body drawing closer to his. "Are you sure?" He raised an eyebrow teasingly. The dim light spotlighted the unyielding resolve in his features, silhouetted against the backdrop of flickering shadows. "I'm not afraid of you, Julian," I declared, my heart galloping in defiance. His eyes danced, a bright spark igniting within them. "What if it's not me you should fear?" "No one can dictate who I am or how I will navigate my path," I answered, fangling strength, even as I felt the weight of unacknowledged truth settle in my chest. "Is that so?" "I beg to differ," he murmured, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear, sending a current of electricity racing through me. The air thickened with uncharted emotions, and I was blinded by the very darkness I had claimed not to fear. "Let it be known, Julian Black, I will not be merely swept away by charm or mystery," I warned, but my voice trembled slightly at his touch, revealing more than I intended. "Maybe it's not charm that binds us, but the very darkness you reject," he answered. "Each shadow carries a spark of truth." Our eyes locked, and I felt my defenses crumbling, the weight of our collision pulling me in yet deeper. Sparks flew and crescendoed. Between us spun an enticing dance of fear and fascination. "This isn't a game," I murmured, yearning for clarity but lost in the whirlwind we had created. "Sometimes the truth lies beneath layers of chaos," he replied, assuring but hidden, his lips curling in a way that promised so much more. "Where does that lead us?" I challenged, my heart racing as the pendulum swung between fear and unknown yearning. "To the cusp of something exhilarating," he replied, his voice a silken promise, filled with an urgency that felt impossibly close. In that charged moment, my resistance slipped. As an unyielding magnet pulled me into his world, I closed the distance and pressed myself against him, a mixture of recklessness and excitement rising like an untamed wave. Our lips met with a fervor that undermined all thoughts of caution, as I slipped into a depth of desire, violent and sublime. As I sank into him, our bodies moving with a fervent urgency, the blizzard outside howled ferociously, a reminder that nothing in our lives had ever offered us an easy path. But here, tangled in the embrace we created, I finally understood that beneath the swirling storm of emotions, a powerful truth unleashed itself. Sometimes, darkness drives the spark of light we so desperately seek. "Zara," he breathed, pulling away slightly to look deeply into my eyes, his voice barely a whisper against the storm outside. Are you truly ready for this kind of depth? I don't know, I whispered. Yet in the center of that uncertainty, my will to explore eclipsed the fear. I knew then that I couldn't shy away. This was a journey I had to complete. Our complexities and shadows intertwined, awaited exploration. And in that moment, I chose to embrace the darkness. Hashtag Chapter 5, Dwindling Supplies. Are we really out of coffee? The incredulity in my voice cut through the chilled air, thick with the briny scent of the southern ocean that undulated beneath us. I stood in the compact galley next to the sink, where the last remnants of our well-stocked supplies clinked dismally against the tin cans. Each metallic sound echoing the gnawing anxiety that had settled into the pit of my stomach. Julian's lean frame leaned casually against the counter, arms crossed, but the storm brewing in his dark eyes belied his relaxed posture. You're surprised? We're weeks into this expedition, Zara. His voice held a lilt of amusement, but the tautness in his shoulders suggested he wasn't entirely unaffected by our dwindling resources. Coffee is a basic human need, Julian. I shot back, trying to maintain my composure. I flicked a stray hair behind my ear, suddenly conscious of how disheveled I must have looked. The mascara from last night's frivolities slightly smudged beneath my eyes. He pushed away from the counter, stepping closer, the warmth of his presence igniting something instinctual within me. We can't eat worries and coffee, can we? His tone danced between teasing and insistent. We'll have to get creative. This is what happens when you invite 8 overzealous academics onto a luxury cruise for what was supposed to be a serene study of the Antarctic ecosystem. Speak for yourself, Julian. I merely came for the exploration. I folded my arms defensively, but there was no hiding the undercurrents of tension hanging between us, like an invisible string taut and ready to snap. His brow arched, a playful slash of mischief painting his lips. Exploration, or human exploration? The way the corners of his mouth twitched ignited a smoldering spark of irritation and thrill all at once. Who says we can't do both? I challenged, casting my gaze toward the tiny porthole window. Beyond the frosted glass, the dreams of endless snowfields lay frozen in white, a world of possibilities beckoning. But yes, I'd still like my coffee. A sudden clatter interrupted us, a noise from the makeshift pantry, sending anxious shivers through the quarters. From around the corner, Malcolm, our self-declared survivalist and conspiracy theorist, burst into the galley, all wild eyes and frizzled hair. Zara, Julian, you have to see this. What is it now? Julian asked, irritation flickering across his features. Malcolm's enthusiasm rarely related to anything worth the disruption. It's not just coffee. You need to look at the supplies inventory. We're dangerously low. His voice dropped, as though he were unveiling a dark secret. I managed to count hidden reserves yesterday after your little soiree, and we've been underestimating our consumption. We might have to ration. This isn't a food shortage problem, it's a management problem, I murmured, pinching the bridge of my nose as dread coiled inside me. How on earth did we let this happen? Malcolm shrugged, eyes glinting like marbles in a child's game. You academics are great theorists, but tough love is the reality in a crisis. He turned his gaze to Julian, who straightened, reflecting Malcolm's growing intensity. Do you really think it's that simple? We wouldn't be in this mess if we'd followed my original itinerary. Julian's voice escalated, tension tightening the room like a noose. My heart raced. In a matter of moments, the playful banter had morphed into an open confrontation, the stakes rising dangerously. Maybe you could have consulted the rest of us, I interjected, trying to douse the conflict simmering between Julian and Malcolm before it ignited. The last thing I wanted was an argument to fracture this fragile camaraderie. A throaty chuckle bubbled from Julian's lips, disarming the atmosphere for a brief moment. Consultation takes time, Malcolm. Not all of us have the luxury of tentativeness. Besides, I'm not the one stealing instant noodles at every meal. Some of this is on you. Excuse me? Malcolm's stance shifted, hands, fists at his sides. You can't blame me for wanting to survive. While you're out there charming your way through the cold nights, I'm the one calculating just exactly how many bags of nuts are left. I'm the one taking this seriously. The tension hung heavy, the glacial stillness of the Antarctic wrapping around us like a tight cloak. I could feel the unease echoing within my chest, as both men, stalwart in their convictions, glared like two warriors preparing to face off. We're going to need to cooperate if we're going to get through this, not bicker, I chided. I forced myself to meet their eyes, the stubborn resolve in me flaring. So who's in charge of the supplies? Julian scoffed, meeting my gaze. Clearly, if we survive as a family of wannabe explorers, I'll take the lead. Malcolm scoffed loudly. A family of scholars living in a glorified icebox? What's next? Potluck nights? What about charm-off nights? Julian snapped back, his voice thick with sarcasm. I had to stifle a laugh. Their banter was more playful than they chose to let on, but I also sensed the underlying desperation. The three of us stood in silence, all too aware of the stakes now hanging over us, something primal slumbering beneath our pristine cabin. Something desperate and very real. Okay, I said, voice firm. So let's get a plan going. There aren't many hours in the day before night falls, and our fears grow larger than the supplies. Let's have a meeting. I want everyone to be involved. I'll arrange it, Julian replied, his voice calmer, revealing a kind of tremendous authority I'd come to admire. Malcolm, can you check with the others? Perhaps summarize our supplies and how we can manage them? Limit luxuries? Limit luxuries? Malcolm exclaimed, shocked. You mean do I worry about correct meal pairings of fresh berries and artisanal crackers or something? Julian shot him a withering glance. You could worry less about appearances and more about keeping your hands out of the nut jar. Fine, but if we perish, I'm blaming you first. The existential crisis may add flavor to your eloquent musings. Malcolm shrugged as he disappeared back into the ship's inner offices, the clattering of his footsteps echoing away. I turned back to Julian, who stood unflinching, a flicker of determination lighting his eyes. I appreciate you taking the lead there. Someone has to, he replied, stepping closer and closing the space that had widened during the unyielding verbal scuffle. You don't have to carry all of this weight alone, Zara. I'm not alone, I insisted, feeling emboldened, yet vulnerable, a strange concoction swimming in my chest. I met his gaze. There was something almost vulnerable in the tightness of his lips, a plea waiting beneath his bravado. Are you sure? His tone dipped low enough to soften the edges of our earlier conflict. You know, the moment you stepped onto the ship, I thought we were embarking on something more than mere scholarly pursuit. This man had a way of finding the hard truths hidden behind flippant words. I resisted the urge to look away. What do you mean by that? His eyes pierced right through me, as though peeling away layers of my resolve to find the very essence beneath. We could be more than colleagues. I see it in your hesitance. I hear it in your laughter. What's stopping you from exploring that? A heat swelled in my stomach, uncertainty battling the promise of something liberating and exhilarating. What do you think could be between us? I'm not the type to get swept away in a lavish adventure with an unpredictable man, I challenged, yet my voice trembled. Then you haven't been paying close enough attention, have you? Julian's deep timbre wrapped around me like an embrace, his intensity drawing me nearer, the air crackling with expectancy. Just then, the insistent shrill of the ship's intercom cut sharply through the intimate moment, sending flutters of anxiety through my gut. Meeting at the main observation deck in 5, boomed the captain's voice, sending everyone into a flurry of activity. I'll speak with the rest of our party, Julian said, and the distance between us rapidly expanded as he retreated into the corridor. I watched him disappear, yearning for the softness we barely grazed. The dissonance of the impending meeting intertwined with the tantalizing echoes of what we nearly explored tugged at me. In the depths of this insurmountable ice, surrounded by dwindling supplies, I could feel it, the complicated web of desire and ambition, pulling us both ever closer toward revelation or ruin. And the thrill of that uncertainty was electrifying. With a resolved breath, I moved to join the others, the soft whisper of chaos tugging at me. "Not all of us are scholars of life, Julian," I whispered to the empty galley. "But I'm learning." Perhaps there was a lure in that uncertainty, in both the thrill of survival and the temptation of the heart. Chapter 6: Sabotage Uncovered. The ship rocked gently against the glacial expanse of Antarctica, its hull creaking like an old man's bones. I stood on the observation deck, the bitter cold biting at my cheeks, and drew in a breath so sharp I could nearly taste the iciness of the air. It was a sharp reminder that amid the ethereal beauty surrounding me, darker truths lurked beneath the surface. Beneath an expansive sky layered in hues of haunting gray and enchanting blue, the landscape glittered like shards of a broken dream. The icebergs shimmered in fractured sunlight, and for a moment, the tension that clung to my body unraveled as I let myself marvel at the stunning desolation. But the peace was fleeting, shadows of Julian Black eclipsing everything. My fingers tightened around the railing, the cold metal brushing against my skin, driving my thoughts back to the emails I had stumbled upon earlier that morning. Emails that uncovered a clandestine operation of sabotage orchestrated by none other than Julian. I could still hear the soft tap of the keys beneath my hands as I read his carefully calculated destroy the competition strategy, a betrayal engineered with surgical precision. What was it about him that drew me in like a moth to flame? His poised demeanor, the way he moved with unyielding confidence, while simultaneously masking an undercurrent of darkness. Each encounter with him left me exhilarated, but today, anger collided with desire, creating a volcanic concoction inside of me. "Zara?" A familiar voice broke through my reverie. I turned to see Mira, my friend and research partner, her brow furrowing with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost. Or worse, like you just discovered your own heart's betrayal." I shook my head but couldn't hide the tremble in my hands. "It's nothing. Just the cold. Did you find anything useful on our latest excursion?" Mira stepped closer, her gaze penetrating. "No. You're lying. It's about him, isn't it?" She crossed her arms, her authority as unyielding as the glaciers outside. "What did you find?" I wanted to share with her the weight pressing down on me, but the walls I'd built around Julian had reinforced my silence. After a moment, I exhaled slowly, the fog escaping my lips drifting between us. "It's complicated," I murmured, the paradox of my feelings leaving an acrid taste in my mouth. "Complicated, right?" Mira raised an eyebrow in challenge. Her rich brown skin glowed, the light catching her unwavering confidence. "You're doing it again, Zara, pushing those feelings away. This man is clearly in over his head with you, and so are you with him. Just spit it out." Before I could respond, I spotted him, Julian standing by the entrance to the deck, a picture of unfettered elegance in a tailored coat that accentuated his powerful frame. The long shadows of the cabin swept across his face, lending an ethereal quality that both captivated and unsettled me. "Zara," he called, his voice smooth and confident, pulling my attention from my spiraling thoughts. "I was hoping to find you. There's something important we need to discuss." The gravity of his tone sent a shiver down my spine. Mira stepped back, sensing the impending storm. As she slipped away, shadows played on Julian's face, revealing the sharp angles of his features, the dark intensity in his gaze, lingering far too long for comfort. "What do you want, Julian?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Meet me in the library," he replied, his demeanor alluring yet daunting. "It's urgent." Urgency tugged at me like a riptide, pulling me toward him. The library was a world of faded velvet and the scent of old parchment, thick with secrets and hidden expectations. I nodded, my heart pounding inside my chest, like a caged bird eager for release. The way he moved through the space was magnetic, and as I followed, I couldn't help but wonder whether my feelings were an intricate web of deceit or something far more profound. When he arrived at the library, he leaned against a table, arms crossed, his eyes dark and fathomless. Zara. He paused, and I could see him struggling, searching for the right words. I need you to understand something. Understand what? Your underhanded tactics to ruin my competition? I cut him off, blood rising to my cheeks. How could you? His brow furrowed as he unfolded his arms. It's not what it looks like. I didn't want it to come to this. An accident? A harmless misstep? My voice rose, the indignation resonating within me. Please, just listen, he begged, stepping closer. The space between us crackled with tension, and I felt the weight of our history. The nights spent debating theories, the laughter, the burgeoning flirtations. I did all of this to protect you, to ensure your research succeeds. By sabotaging others? Are you serious right now? I could barely contain my rage, the surge of emotions threatening to consume me whole. What about ethics, Julian? What about integrity? Did you think I would just stand by while you unraveled the lives of others for your own gain? His expression twisted, a potent mix of desperation and determination. You don't understand. There is so much more at stake. My family, Zara, my brother. He needs that cure. His desperation cracked through my resentment, a glimmer that hinted at deeper truths. But even as I felt the walls I had built begin to waver, shame coursed through me. And you think this justifies everything? I spat. You've placed me at the center of your schemes without my consent. You expect me to keep quiet about this? I thought I was helping. I thought you'd understand. His voice trailed off, the power dynamic between us shifting. You thought wrong, I replied coldly, turning away. The silence that hung between us pulsed like a taut string, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. I can't change the past, Zara, he continued with a raw plea in his voice. But I've been waiting for you. I believed in you, in your ability to succeed. I've made terrible choices, I know that, but you have to see the truth. Truth? Is that what you call dragging others down for your own purposes? I shot back, the flames of rage illuminating the shadows of my own confusion. My heart pounded, bewildered by this man who could spark a wildfire within me, yet simultaneously evoke such fury. Zara, stop, he begged, anger morphing into something more, a fierce intensity that made the air between us charged. You haven't seen the entire picture. If you'd just listen, I could explain everything. Explain what? I glared at him, my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles were white. That you've sought power through manipulation? That you're willing to destroy everything I've worked for? Yes, he shouted, his voice reverberating off the walls. And in that moment, the tension shifted. Gone was the polished gentleman. What stood before me was a man raw with desire and desperation. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect you and my family. It was the desperation in his words and the intensity in his gaze that cracked my resolve. The rhythm of my heart raced against the fear and anger battling within. I wanted to hate him, to push him away, but instead I felt myself being drawn nearer, swept up in the storm of emotion swirling between us. The sudden shift in intensity drew us closer. I could see the humanity beneath his beguiling charm. In his eyes, I saw secrets of longing and vulnerability that gazed back at me, unyielding and fierce. Julian, I whispered, softer now, but the fire remained. What if I don't want to be saved in your way? That's not a choice I'm willing to accept. He stepped closer, closing the distance. The seconds felt like hours, our breaths mingling, the tension sparking a connection neither of us could deny. Your desire to control everything is suffocating, I murmured, my breath hitching as his warmth enveloped me. What about my choices? Then let me show you, he replied, his tone velvet, seductive. Let me show you how fiercely I can love you. Before I could protest, his lips found mine in a collision of heat and longing, igniting something fierce and raw within me. Each kiss ignited a fuse, passionate, consuming, far too combustible to contain in the icy air surrounding us. The tension shattered into 1,000 shards, the tumult of our feelings unveiled in an unrestrained rush of desire. As desire escalated, I grappled with the dichotomy of my feelings. The soft brush of his lips contrasted with the chaos of our lives. The beauty of our shared history feuding against the dark revelations of betrayal. But it wasn't enough to pull me away. Our bodies melted into one another as if they were made to fit. Each moment we shared transcended the conflict. He was both temptation and toxic enigma, his hands against my skin igniting a fever I thought only existed in dreams. Was I ready to embrace this? To surrender to the tumult wrought by a man gripping my heart while pulling me into his shadowy world? Desire intertwined with mistrust, and as Julian's hands slipped into my hair and his kisses deepened, I felt myself teetering on a precipice. What if I let him draw me in? What if his chaos ensnared me forever? In that breathless encounter, the stakes soared, intertwining passion and power, betrayal and hope. His lips broke away from mine. "Tell me you understand," he breathed, searching my gaze with an urgency that left me feeling vulnerable yet vibrant. "I don't know what I understand," I admitted, disoriented, my heart racing faster than the ice melting beneath us. "But all I know is—" "Say it, Zara. Say you'll trust me," he urged, eyes locked on mine, his voice a low rumble, tempting and threatening in equal measures. I opened my mouth, poised on the brink of revelation, when a familiar laugh echoed from the corridor, slicing through our bubble. "Save some for later," Mira exclaimed, her presence breaking the tension with an uninhibited delight that slid through the door just as it creaked open. "Do you have any idea how dramatic you both look?" she snickered, the initial surprise on her face morphing into delight. "Is this a bad time?" she continued, her smile wide with the kind of mischief that could only spell trouble. I turned away from Julian, heart racing, the blush of embarrassment creeping up my cheeks. He laughed, breaking through the palpable tension with a warm chuckle that seemed to ignite new threads between us. "Just a little," Julian teased, a playful tone sharpening his blue-black eyes. "But I believe Zara here was about to make an announcement." "Is that right, Zara?" Mira urged, her eyes darting between us, the gleeful anticipation sputtering tension in the air. But the truth of what I wanted hung precariously, intertwined with uncertainty. As I stood there, surrounded by the gleaming ice and tumultuous emotions, I knew something had shifted irrevocably. "Let's just say," I smiled, my resolve hardening despite the chaos unfolding around me, "nothing worth having comes easy." With that thought, I wedged myself deeper into the intricacies of my desire, while caught in the eye of this unanticipated storm. Chapter 7. Avalanche Teamwork. I stood at the edge of the observation deck, breathless in the biting Antarctic wind, which knifed through my clothing, biting at my skin like a warning. The vast, untouched expanse of ice stretched out before me, pixelated blues and whites blending seamlessly into the horizon. My heart drummed with both exhilaration and trepidation, fiercely tethered to the unforgiving beauty of this frozen wilderness. It mirrored the chaos within me, untamed, sharp, and dangerous. The vastness of the landscape felt claustrophobic as I grappled with the burgeoning feelings Julian had stirred in me. "I thought you'd gone mad," came a familiar voice, stirring in me a mixture of irritation and delight. I turned to see Julian, glancing at the sky, his brow furrowed, clad in a sleek parka that seemed to wrap around him like an imposing second skin. He looked every bit the enigma he was. "The winds are shifting. We should head back inside." My eyes narrowed. "Not until I finish my notes. Do you think fear can intimidate me?" A grin tugged at his lips. "No, but a mountain might." "Enough with the dramatics," I snapped back, my heart betraying me by quickening at the playful glint in his eyes. "Besides, I saw a group of climbers setting up trails nearby. If they can do it, so can I." He stepped closer, his breath visible in the frigid air, carrying an undertone of steely protection. "How many times do you need to learn to trust that your safety matters to me?" "Trust? I hardly know that word when it comes to you." My voice wavered, betraying a hint of vulnerability. "Zara," he said softly, the moment suspended as he closed the distance between us. "It's your safety I'm after, not the summit." And then that pulsating glimmer of mischief returned to his gaze. "Though I wouldn't mind conquering a summit of my own." There it was, the tension electrifying the air around us, thicker than the snow falling softly on the deck. Just then, a low rumble echoed through the mountains, like the growl of a beast awakening from slumber. My stomach twisted. "Did you hear that?" My voice was barely a whisper. Julian's expression hardened. "We need to." The roar came again, a crashing sound that seemed to encapsulate all foreboding. Before I could even process the situation, ground beneath our feet trembled violently, and snow cascaded from the mountainside, an avalanche unleashed. "Run!" Julian shouted, grasping my arm with a fierce urgency, propelling me forward, his grip like iron. The sound of the falling snow, deafening and insistent, swallowed us whole as we sprinted toward the building's safety. I felt the air thicken, each breath rippling through my lungs with the icy clarity of fear. We skidded to the entrance of the ship, stumbling over each other as the world around us disintegrated in a white fury. Just inside, we collapsed against the wall, heaving, the adrenaline coursing through my body felt like fire melting away all other thoughts. I blinked up at Julian, my heart racing for reasons I could barely understand now, fear mixing dangerously with the thrill he aroused in me. "You okay?" His voice oscillated between concern and something deeper. Yes, I nodded, though my pulse was still racing. "What was that?" "Just a warning from the mountain," he replied, sliding down the wall beside me, Mother Nature reminding us who's really in charge. Still shaking, I twisted my lips into a wry smile. In that case, I should probably apologize to her for even thinking I could conquer this. He chuckled, the warmth of it unfurling the tension between us. "You're far too ambitious for your own good. You'll end up buried not just under snow, but under your own pride." The moment lingered, our breaths synchronizing in the chill of the enclosed space. "You'd be the one to dig me out, wouldn't you?" I challenged, locking my gaze with his. "Absolutely, though I might take my time just to teach you a lesson." There was something masquerading behind that cocky bravado, and my chest tightened at the thought. A sudden shift in the atmosphere jolted me back. The air began to feel heavy with unsaid words, our laughter tapering off into silence, stretching, almost painfully, as Julian's expression became serious. "Zara, A distant commotion interrupted him, others outside the observation area, swirling back in. Our moments snapped abruptly away as my friend Ivy burst through the door, her cheeks flushed from the cold. "Zara, I was worried. I thought you were out there when the avalanche hit." "I'm fine. We're fine," I reassured, glancing at Julian, whose demeanor had shifted back into the enigmatic facade he wore so easily. Ivy continued, oblivious to the tension. "Have you seen DeMarcus? He's acting peculiar again." "The man is a perennial riddle," Julian replied, his voice smooth. "Why don't you ask him what's bothering him?" "Because whatever it is, I'm sure it involves scandal," Ivy grumbled, shaking her head, dislodging snowflakes from her dark curls. "He's been mumbling about us underestimating the real adventure, whatever that means." Julian offered Ivy a thoughtful frown, clearly wary. "That doesn't sound promising. Especially not with our expedition about to embark south tomorrow," I added. "What do you think he means?" Ivy's eyes seemed bright with intrigue. "Let's just say I'm not fond of mysteries when we're teetering on the edge of a glacier," I replied, looking at Julian. His silence was unnerving, but his gaze remained fixed on the ground, as if contemplating. "But it can't be that bad, right? Just an expedition? What could possibly go?" A loud thud echoed from the deck above us. My heart sank, premonitions spiraling wildly. I sprinted toward the stairway, Julian hot on my heels, his protective instinct kicking back in. When we reached the observation area again, my breath snagged in my throat as DeMarcus stood by the great window, his silhouette that of a scholar, steady yet conjuring something heavier, darker. "We need to talk," he announced, his voice low yet commanding. "Talk about what?" Ivy asked, crossing her arms, clearly unimpressed. "About what you think this adventure really is," DeMarcus replied cryptically. I raised an eyebrow. "If you mean the icy horizon, I think it's quite self-explanatory." "No, the real adventure is the truth buried beneath," he countered, looking straight at Julian and then back at me. "I may have discovered something about all of us." "What's that supposed to mean?" Julian asked, the tension in his posture shifting palpably. "I've seen your research, both of you." DeMarcus's gaze lingered on me. "I know what Julian has been doing for the last 2 years, and why." The revelation hung in the air, thicker than the icy winds outside. My breath quickened, a mix of anticipation and confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Julian has manipulated the competition, Zara," DeMarcus continued, the baritone of his voice striking like a gavel. "He's been sabotaging your colleagues, all for you." "What?" The word came out in a burst, laced with disbelief and anger. "Why would you do that?" I turned to Julian, my heart racing for all the wrong reasons. "Julian, say something," I demanded, heat rising in my chest, swirling around the raw emotions of betrayal and confusion. He stepped closer to me, his expression a mix of earnestness and vulnerability. "Zara, please listen. This was never about hurting others. I needed to protect whom? Me?" I interrupted, incredulous. "Or yourself?" "Both," he implored, desperation palpable under the weight of his gaze. "I wanted to ensure your path was clear. I knew you were destined for something extraordinary. I just didn't expect." "Expect what? For me to find out your web of lies like this? To have your schemes unfold like some twisted thriller?" My words came rapid fire, each syllable punctuating betrayal. "I'm not a prize to win, Julian. You don't get to decide my fate." With a tremor of realization, the electricity between us shifted. The tension began to fray, unraveling into the unknown. Our connection had been forged through a spectrum of emotions, from the exhilarating high of shared laughter to the crushing lows of mistrust. "But Ivy interceded. "Julian, you must speak up before this disintegrates into nothingness." "Zara," Julian said, his voice catching with tension, "I did it all because I wanted to see you thrive, but I also wanted to shield you from the dangers out there. I didn't know how else to ensure you reached your potential." My eyes widened in disbelief. "So manipulating my career, that's your definition of shielding? It's your pride driving this madness, Julian." He stepped forward again, intensely close, our breaths mingling like mist in the chill air. "Consider it a shield forged from my own fear of losing you to a world that doesn't see how brilliant you are." It struck me then. This ferocity hadn't just been born of ambition, but desperation. The kind that came when a person's heart was slowly thawing, hesitant to let the warmth in when they had been stung too many times before. Before I could gather another scintilla of protest, Julian swept me into his embrace. Our bodies colliding so forcefully, I felt his heart beating against mine. Confusion muddling with an undeniable yearning. "It doesn't have to end here, Zara. We can learn to trust one another." Some part of me wanted to fight, wanted to burst forth like the avalanche we had narrowly escaped. But beneath this tempest of emotions, I sensed something deeper. A gravity in his gaze that pulled me in, whispering of the tangled currents we had woven together. I took a breath, grounding myself in the sensation of his warmth enveloping me against the frostbitten backdrop, just as our friendship shifted, hardening into something ripe, taut with unspoken possibilities. "What if I trust you?" I probed, feeling the uncertainty still coiling tight, balanced on the edge of hope and lingering doubt. "Then we'll face whatever comes next together," he whispered, that fierce resolve glimmering in his eyes. My heart fluttered, a wild, intoxicating surge, a leap into the unseen. "Well, it had better not be another avalanche. I can only take so much weight at once." He grinned, a promise, a glimmer of mischief that sparked back to life. "You're going to have to acclimate quickly, or you'll be left buried beneath expectations, both mine and yours." I pulled back, our gazes locked, the connection between us now a fragile tapestry, tentative yet exquisite. Then let's forge a new path together, one that I can claim as my own. As the winds of change howled beyond the walls of the ship, I realized that this moment, thick with potential, was not just a testament to my future, but a roadmap toward a more profound love, an expedition that would lead us both to uncharted territory. "I'll pack my gear," Julian quipped, the tension tempered into warmth. "Considering we might face more than just an avalanche." "More like an avalanche of revelations," I retorted with a teasing smile. "Then let's tackle them one snowy step at a time." As we drew close again, the world outside icy and brutal, we stood firm, forging through the storm together, navigating the intricate dance of budding trust and undeniable attraction. And together, we would brave what lay ahead. Chapter 8: Stormy Self-Discovery. The Antarctic wind howled like a feral beast, snow swirling in frenzied gusts that clawed at the expedition ship's polished decks. I stood at the railing, bracing against the biting cold while trying to kind the chaos in my mind. This journey, meant to enrich my research, had transformed into something altogether more tumultuous. My heart raced, a wild drum in my chest, as I thought of Julian. His laughter, a sonorous warmth amidst the frigid landscape, echoed in my memory. Yet the balance of our interaction danced precariously on the edge of something cataclysmic, his charm teetering dangerously close to obsession, igniting in me both admiration and dread. And just as I feared my emotions would betray me, I saw him through the bluster of storm, a lone figure against a backdrop of white, his silhouette carved sharp against nature's turmoil. "Zara, get below deck," Julian's voice pierced through the wind, urging me with more serration than tenderness. "Why don't you face me instead?" I shot back, my breath leaving in clouds of vapor as I launched myself through the storm toward him. There he stood, gripping the metal railing, as another wave of icy spray crashed against the hull. "You can't simply order me around. Someone has to be the sensible one." He spun to meet me, his eyes another storm, fierce with challenge, and something deeper, annoyance mingling with a hint of something more compelling. Each stride I took drew me nearer to the summoning magnetism he exuded. "What if I want to be reckless?" I called over the howling wind, heart racing. "What if you, or this ship, don't get to dictate my storm?" He narrowed his eyes, almost playfully. "This isn't a game, Zara. You're being reckless. You don't even understand the risks." "And you do?" I deflected, all simmering energy. Above us, the clouds swirled ominously, as though echoing the tempest below our skins. "You think you're better than everyone else, just because you hold all the cards. What are you waiting for? Permission? Do you think this is about power?" His startling intensity knocked me backward for a second, his posture shifting as he seemed to approach, the world receding under the pull of his significance. "Power's all you've ever known, Julian. Don't act like you're above it." My words quivered in my throat, and I felt a swell of audacity. "Trying to task me like I am some obstacle in your way." "Zara," he warned, voice edged, "this storm will swallow you whole." But then, there it was, undeniable, a sudden shift in the grip of the wind. A veering funnel surged, a rogue blast of icy air smashing into the side of the ship like a battering ram, catching Julian off guard. He stumbled, fingers curling around the slick railing, gasping against the raging tempest. My instincts ignited in an instant. I lunged toward him, adrenaline pushing me through the icy barrier. I reached for him, wrapping my arm around his waist, just as the ship lurched violently, threatening to cast him into the depths of the white abyss. "Hold on," I shouted, hurling my will into our collective gravity as I pulled him back to safety. The world around us melted into a blur of muffled chaos, and for a breathless moment it was then only Julian and I, suspended in our collision of fears and desires. "Zara, you—" "Not now," I barked, urgency coloring my tone, and together we gripped the railing and steadied ourselves against the storm's wrath. His hand was warm against my cold fabric, a bolt of heat through my jacket, warming both body and heart. infusing me with a sense of strength I didn't know I possessed. Once the immediate danger passed, reality crashed back, the world lurching back into focus. His gaze held mine, an electric current reflecting the hundreds of emotions swirling between us. There was awe, there was anger, yet it was the vulnerability caught in those depths that struck me most forcefully. "You just saved my life," he murmured, breathing rapidly. His blue eyes betrayed depths as starry as the Antarctic sky, yet shielded by the still tempest of storm clouds that threatened to roll over him. "Kind of poetic, don't you think?" The one underestimating the other, I let the statement linger. But there was something more than sarcasm there. My heart was racing not just from the icy gale, but from the fear of how he adjusted the rhythms of my world. "Risks, rewards," he began, his expression shifting inexorably. "Love, loyalty, everything in this storm is chaotic, but maybe it could lead to clarity." "Clarity?" I scoffed, both drawn to and wary of where his contemplations led. "I'm not interested in clarity. I want—" "What? What do you want?" he challenged, challenging us both. "I want discovery, in my heart and my research." I took a step closer. I refused to shrink back, even if the storm's threatening to consume me. "I need your fire, Zara," he said quietly, earnest intensity threading his words, yet a shadow darkened his countenance. "But sometimes fire is uncontrollable." Beneath layers of bravado and steel, his vulnerability beckoned me, yet I could see the unseen barriers he built. Salty air clung to our skin, the ship beneath us creaking from the tumult of the storm, mirroring the thunderous emotions in the space between us. I felt a flicker of intuition dance along my spine, setting off sparks of hidden truths. "Then let it burn," I insisted, voice rising in passionate clarity. "You've been hatching plans for years, revolutionizing lives. Allow me to stand beside you, not beneath you." A moment stretched taut between us, our hearts racing against the braying wind. Then suddenly, with a primal urgency, he closed the space between us, his palm finding the back of my neck, tilting my face upward, his breath grazing my lips. "Zara," he whispered, the sound thick with a gravity stronger than the storm. I searched his gaze, surrendering to the brilliance of his complexity, wrestling with my own soaring heartbeat. The kiss was a pealing thunder, fierce and electric, igniting the lingering ache nestled deep within me, a need that had remained dormant too long, locked away beneath layers of overshadowing ambition. The storm raged on above us, battering against our fragile vessel, yet in the eye of our collision, where heat met the bitter chill, I felt a light, a discovery within myself that I had long resisted. "Then let's be reckless together," I breathed, as I pressed myself against the force of him, nerves aflame. The taste of the wildness of both our hearts combined was intoxicating, a dance of fervor that spoke not of fragility, but rather the strength of entwined souls. The kiss deepened, his body holding me fast, every touch tangled in urgency, as if the storm outside urged us to surrender completely to this reckless abandon. I melted against him, our chemistry woven into the very fabric of this moment, blending vulnerability with reckless passion. And as our worlds collided, with the ire of the storm as our backdrop, I understood at last that neither of us needed to be defined by the storms in our lives. Instead, we could embrace them, sink into the chaos together, emboldened by the illumination in the depths of our hearts. I pulled back, breathless, eyes blazing. "You think you can withstand the storm?" "I know I can," he replied, his voice steady against the tempest surrounding us. "With you, definitely." With that resolute conviction hanging in the air, I braved the storm. Wrapped in the warmth of our embrace, I dared to surrender to something far beyond both our ambitions. In that chaos, I discovered true power and the beauty that lay in the freedom of vulnerability. As we stood together against the ferocity of the white abyss, I knew we would conquer our individual storms, forever transformed by the very recklessness that had brought us together. "You're right," I murmured softly. "We ignite the fire." He smiled, that full, rich smile that warmed the icy gusts around us. Then let's fan the flames. And in that moment, amidst the rising tide of churning winds, the path ahead was swept clean, ready to embrace whatever chaos lay beyond. "Why are you staring at them like they're about to spill their secrets?" I asked, trying to inject some levity into the thick atmosphere. Julian glanced sideways, a half-smile playing on the edge of his mouth. "Maybe they are. What's the point of a book if it doesn't intrigue you?" His voice carried a mixture of challenge and amusement. I was thinking more about the underlying themes of attraction. I settled on a plush velvet armchair, arms crossed defiantly against the world I wished repelled me less. Such as desire, the stark and sometimes painful truth of it. Desire, huh? He leaned casually against the shelf, an enviable blend of confidence and artistry. "So we're delving into the complexities of human connection then. What do you think this place is?" His gaze softened, though it teetered at the edge of mischief. "Do you mean to suggest that all these words can solve the riddle of why humans leap into relationships that burn bright yet fizzle out?" My brow furrowed. "They just foster unrealistic expectations, Julian. Unrealistic ideas of what romance should be." "You're missing the point, Zara." He took a step closer, drawing out the syllables of my name, like a melody I hadn't realized I'd yearned to hear. "You can't dismiss desire as something purely detrimental." "Tell that to my budding academic career," I retorted, my heart pounding under the weight of our conversation. It's hard to climb ladders made of ambition while navigating through a sea of distractions. Distractions, huh? He moved even closer, a flash of something dark yet inviting flickering in his eyes. "Or maybe they're just part of the exploration." "Exploration?" I huffed, an ember of frustration igniting within me. "Exploration requires focus, Julian. You know that." "Ah, see? Therein lies the paradox." He stepped back, smirking. "The more you cling to your focus, the less likely you are to explore new heights." The tension in the air thickened, charged, crackling like linen sheets drawn tight across a stark winter night. My pulse quickened as he approached me once more and lowered his voice. "You know, deep down, you want to see what happens when you loosen your grip." "Why do you always have to make it sound so tantalizing, like it's a game?" I challenged, folding my arms tighter. "Because, Zara," he murmured, a teasing spark in his eyes, "sometimes it is a game. You throw the dice and sometimes you win, while other times you're left wandering, seeking." "Where are you even going with this?" My cheeks flared as I found my body responding against my will, drawn towards him, a leaning in of sorts, the fear ebbing ever so slightly as curiosity took hold. "Maybe I'm asking you to embrace the chaos, to welcome the unexpected," he said, his gaze piercing through the facade I held tightly around myself. I couldn't pretend any longer. "And what if I'm afraid? Afraid of desire?" Julian's voice dropped lower, spicy embers igniting in our space. "Desire can expand your capacity for life. It can open doors you can't even imagine." "Or it can wreck everything," I shot back, anger and desire knotted tightly within. And that's where we clash. He was now mere inches away, the warmth radiating from him like a live wire. What you fear is what I relish. The unpredictable nature of desire, the intoxicating closeness of two souls willing to leap. "Will it hurt?" I whispered, the words shaky on my lips. "It may," he acknowledged softly, his breath warm against my face. "But sometimes pain is the prelude to growth." He reached for me, his long fingers brushing against my forearm, leaving a tingling awareness in their wake. I shivered, an involuntary gasp escaping my lips. "Zara," he whispered, his voice low and firm, "don't let fear dictate your choices. You deserve more than a life lived in shadows." And before I could fully comprehend what was happening, he stepped forward, the gap between us collapsing until my heart could match its thundering pace with the rhythm of his breath. "Are you afraid of what happens next?" He cast a glance down my body, slow and tantalizing, igniting heat coiling deep within. I met his gaze, my defenses crumbling with every word. "No," just afraid of the unknown. With that admission, his lips found mine, crashing together with a force that trembled through my very essence. He tasted like the essence of the icy wind, sharp yet vivid, a mixture of longing and intensity resolved in our fervent connection. My fingers curled into the brass buttons of his shirt as he deepened the kiss, tilting my head to savor the moment, leaving no room for hesitation. The world dissolved around us into a swirl of unyielding passion. But then, clarity pierced the haze. "Wait," I gasped, pulling back breathless. "What are we doing? This can't just be some impulsive reaction." He hesitated, but didn't back away. "Why not? What if it could deepen the intimacy we've built?" Intimacy. This was the whisper of the flame crackling into existence. My heart raced. Could I really unshackle myself from expectations? What if we get hurt? Every risk comes with its fears. He held my gaze, the depths of his own ready to reveal, but I'd take that leap with you any day. My heart screamed a resounding yes, and in that moment of doubt and emotion, we flew into a frenzy, colliding back again as the world shook beneath the weight of our connection. He lifted me, our bodies colliding with the soft lining of the velvety couch, sparking a wildfire that neither of us could resist. "Zara," he breathed, his fingertips tracing my jawline, igniting my skin like matches to kindling. "Let this be our secret, our wild exploration." "Julian," I whispered, echoing his name as if it were a spell to guard us against what lay beyond these library walls. "Let it be more than that." And as his lips traveled southwards, drawing fervently across my collarbone, my body arched instinctively, inviting the storm raging between us. Every kiss ignited sparks of unquenchable passion, unraveling threads of ambition and desire. A tumult of laughter echoed from the corridors outside, the expedition team briefly forgotten, swept away by our own wild sea of sensation. When our bodies converged, we surrendered to the intensity of each touch, reveling in the delicious weightlessness that came with letting go. And with that, I knew what was emerging between us was unstoppable. Not just moments seized from the brink, but a path I was willing to travel, stepping into the embrace of uncertainty. "This, right here," I gasped as I cradled him, feeling the pulse of his heart against mine. "This is where I'm meant to be." "Then let's not waste a single moment." All my doubts, my ambitions, the shackles of fear fell away as the world outside the library faded into a distant memory. Exhilaration coursed through me, and I trembled in surrender as we danced into the depths of an intoxicating abyss, diving headfirst into limitless desires, lost amidst the pages of our very own story. And when the cacophony of laughter outside faded into silence, Julian and I became the voice of the Library of Desires. Chapter 10. A Ghost from the Past. The air inside the expedition ship was stifling, characterized by the steady hum of the engine and the creak of ice pressing against metal. I was alone in the small galley as I prepared my first cup of coffee, dark, rich, and unapologetically bitter, much like the undercurrents of my thoughts. Outside, the icy landscape of Antarctica unfurled in a panorama of whites and blues, resembling a scene from a fairy tale, yet it veiled an alien world where survival seemed thin as the air itself. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of salt and the faint metallic tang of the cold sea air seeping through the ship's portholes. I tried to focus on the steam rising from my mug, the way it twisted and danced before disappearing. Perhaps I was hoping that by concentrating on something tangible, I could dispel the lingering ghost of my own anxiety. "Zara!" Julian's voice rang out, slicing through my reverie as he entered the galley, clad in black thermal gear that accentuated the strong lines of his shoulders and the quiet assurance in his stride. "Did you hear about the latest discovery down by Elephant Island? I think we need to step up our game if we're going to make a name for ourselves." His playful tone was easy to misinterpret, but beneath the banter lay an edge of intensity that made my heart question itself. "And what exactly does that entail?" I replied, mockingly lifting an eyebrow. "Because if it involves scaling frozen cliffs or dodging polar bears, count me out." More like deciphering ancient inscriptions on uncharted rocks, he countered, a twinkle in his eye. But knowing you, I won't be surprised if you end up interpreting cave paintings while I manage to keep the bears at bay. I laughed. The tension momentarily lifted, but it was still there, lurking beneath our light-hearted exchange. I took a long sip of my coffee, appreciating its heat, and turned my attention back to the panoramic view. The icebergs floated like gargantuan sculptures, glowing under the muted sunlight. A breathtaking vista, hiding the compounding weight of my thoughts. "How are you feeling about the project?" Julian asked, his gaze piercing as he studied me. I shrugged lightly, though uncertainly. "Motivated, I suppose. Just trying to gather as much data as I can. You know how it is." I felt a flicker of irritation at his persistence. "Is it that difficult to accept that I'm focused on the research?" He stepped closer, the air thickening between us. "Zara, focus is one thing. Avoiding what's right in front of you is another." His voice dropped to a softer tone. "You're not just here to work, you know. There's more." Before he could finish, my thoughts raced ahead. I opened my mouth to retort when something caught my eye through the galley's window. A distant figure, a silhouette against the ice, was trudging toward the ship, heavy parka swaying. My stomach flipped, a sensation both foreign and familiar. "Who's that?" My voice sounded far away even to me. "Looks like someone's coming aboard." Julian's voice shifted. There was an inscrutable tension in his posture now, a tautness that made my skin prickle. "Do you—" "Yes," I interrupted, abruptly turning away and depositing my mug in the sink with a clatter. "I mean, no, I don't know who that is." I rubbed my palms against my pants nervously. "Zara." He took a step closer, encroaching into my proximity as the figure approached the gangway. "Listen." "No." I shook my head, pushing past him to step outside. "Let me handle this." As I reached the deck, my heart raced. The sun made the ice glisten, blinding me momentarily. But then the figure became clearer. It was Isaac, a ghost from a past I thought I'd buried. The man who had filled my adolescent years with laughter, secrets, and an undeniable connection. And now, like a specter, he was standing before me, startled eyes drinking in the sight of me as though checking to see if I was real. "Zara?" He stepped forward, hesitation in his movements. "Is it really you?" "What are you doing here?" I stammered, caught off guard by the weight of nostalgia. Memories came rushing back. The late-night study sessions, the endless debates about anthropology, and the chemistry we had thought was just scholarly ambition. "I'm part of the research team, but I didn't know you were here. I should have checked." He took a breath, his demeanor shifting from wary to eager. "I've missed you." I crossed my arms, calculating. "Missed me? We haven't spoken in years. You disappeared, Isaac, right when things started getting real." "I had my reasons," he said earnestly, his voice softer, more vulnerable. "I wanted to be here for you, but—" "Excuse me." Julian's presence cut through the air, authoritative and unmistakably fierce. "Do you think your appearance here is a good idea? What do you want with her?" "Easy, Julian." I raised a hand, though I felt the tension mounting. "This is just Isaac." "Just?" Julian's tone held a dangerous edge, and I could see how it set Isaac on guard. 2 years without a word, and you just want to leave it at that? As the icy wind rushed between us, I could see Isaac's breath misting in the cold, mirrored by the heat swirling within me. Memories flooded in, words exchanged too easily, a warmth too vivid. "I didn't expect to see you here, Isaac. I'm not that girl anymore." "Neither am I. You have to believe me, Zara." His earnestness tugged at something deep inside. "I've made changes. I've grown." "Sure, we've all been on our journeys," Julian interjected, arms crossed, his protective posture as glaring as the sun reflecting off the snow. "But sometimes a ghost is just a reminder. We don't need those here." "Julian," I said firmly, feeling the heat of frustration build. "This is my choice. I need to hear him out." "Why?" Julian turned toward me, exasperation mixed with something deeper. Was it jealousy? "Zara, you've worked too hard to let someone who didn't value your worth back into your life. You're a force in this field. Why risk it?" "I want to know what he means." I faced Isaac with conviction, my heart beating unevenly. "If you really have changed, Zara, Isaac pleaded, ignoring Julian's simmering presence. I came here searching for clarity. I regret the silence, the distance. You need to know that. My heart thrummed, a chaotic rhythm lost in the icy sea. Did I want clarity? Or did I want to confront the ghosts of my past? As the sun slid behind thick clouds, the air cooled even more, carrying an electric charge of suspense. Every minute felt stretched, as thick as molasses, and suddenly everything fell quiet. I could feel the weight of both men's intentions wrapping around me. Zara, Julian's voice broke the silence, low and earnest. You have so much ahead of you. Don't let the past reshape the present. Before I could respond, something trapped inside me erupted as I turned back to Isaac, a mix of anger and longing boiling over. What is it you want from me? What could we possibly salvage after all this time? It's not just that. I came here because I found something, he continued, earnest conviction in his eyes. What exactly are you trying to say? I pressed, half terrified of what he might reveal. I found documents about your ancestry, things that may connect us in ways you never thought possible. He took a breath, his expression fervent. You belong to something bigger than you realize. I wanted to help uncover it. I stepped back, bewildered. You're saying I'm connected to something historical? You have to be joking. I'm serious. He moved closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. And probably a bit crazy, but just hear me out. There's a legacy. Enough, Julian interjected, stepping in front of me, an unmistakable barrier. You're here to disrupt her focus. That's clear. You think she'll go back to you because of your late epiphany? I'm not disrupting anything. I'm just trying to help her understand, Isaac countered. My heart raced as I turned to Julian, then back to Isaac. The tension ratcheted tighter, emotions roiling under the surface of icy calm. As the storm surged within me, I put my palm against Julian's chest, grounding myself. Just give me a moment. I want to hear him out, Julian. The atmosphere thickened dangerously, and Isaac, emboldened, stepped closer as Julian hesitated. Raining down bravado, I felt the weight of our shared history wrapped in silence, the stark chill around us buzzing with unspoken words. Let's sit, I suggested, steering us away from the weight of confrontation. We'll talk, and then we'll see who needs to leave. As the three of us settled at a small outdoor table, icy snowflakes danced around us like broken dreams, and the shadows of our pasts lingered close. My heartbeat drummed in my ears, but beneath the chaos, something new felt ready to emerge. An unveiling, waiting in the wings, and I was prepared for whatever twists awaited us. All right, I said, glancing at both men. Let's bring some ghosts into the light. The laughter of friends mingled with the whispered words of secrets yearning for release. Today, I'd face my past head-on and perhaps discover the power that lay hidden in the stories still waiting to be told. The journey ahead shimmered with promise, tension coiling like the flame of fire beneath the surface of our hearts, waiting to ignite. Chapter 11. Testing Limits. Why do you insist on complicating everything? Julian leaned against the cold steel railing of the ship, the ocean's bow wave crashing behind him. His voice had a playful edge, but I could sense the simmering challenge under it. His dark eyes glinted under the dim light of the Antarctic twilight, catching the fire from the vessel's bulbs and igniting my resolve, even as it threatened to set my heart ablaze. I crossed my arms, the crisp maritime air pulling at the sleeves of my sweater. If you think this is complicated, Julian, you may want to reconsider your last 2 years of strategic elimination. He emanated an air of reckless charm that both intrigued and exasperated me. Elimination? I prefer to think of it as curating an environment conducive to your success. Success? I scoffed, stepping closer. Do I really need you to fabricate my career for me? He straightened up, growing serious. Not fabricate, assist. You have a gift for uncovering truths, but you need to break out of your own confines, Zara. I felt a swell of irritation. Yes, I was ambitious, fiercely so, but each mention of his careful orchestration felt like a fraying thread tugging at the fabric of my integrity. And just what do you suggest I do to bust out of these confines? I countered, a hint of challenge creeping into my tone, mirrored by his. Julian took a breath. The moments stretched tense between us, but the orange glow of the ship's lights warmed the night around us, teasing my fears back. Let's start with a little competition, something that'll push your limits. I know you love a good challenge. A smirk curled on my lips. And if I refuse? He stepped forward, lowering his voice enough to send a shiver down my spine. Then you'll never know what you're truly capable of. There was something electric about his proximity, the predatorial glint in his gaze, igniting both my challenges and my reservations. Seriously, who did he think he was? Fine, I said, the word tumbling from my lips almost impulsively. What do you have in mind? Think of it as a test of both skill and passion, he said, his voice a low melody. And we'll include everyone. It'll be entertaining. The glimmer in his eyes promised something exciting and unpredictable. But I had no time to ruminate on that. The sound of laughter echoed from the adjacent lounge, the evident rambunctious energy of our fellow expedition members inviting us to a different scene. As if summoned by the spirit of camaraderie, Sam and Jamie appeared around the corner, their faces lit with excitement. Zara, Julian, Jamie shouted, waving her long arms as if she were beckoning long-forgotten friends in an ancient landscape. We're here to settle the score for the hour. Table hockey. Sam scoffed at the idea. Forget table hockey. We need to test whose skills matter in the real world, like who can scream the loudest into the chilling abyss. Jamie rolled her eyes, dramatically lifting her long hair as she joined Julian against the railing. Honestly, if your scream scares away the seals, we might want to reconsider. What seals? Julian asked, raising an eyebrow at Sam. And why do we want to scare them? I chuckled, the absurdity easing the tension of earlier discussions. Your fear of oceanic mammals is duly noted, Sam. Shush, he shot back playfully. The last thing I need is a whale sympathy group to come after me. I couldn't help but laugh, and for a moment, the questions hanging in the air between Julian and me faded into the night. But as we rallied together into the lounge, a sense of buoyancy kerfuffled the worries that had wrapped around my mind. However, peace was short-lived. Julian wasted no time in shaking up the evening. He casually declared loudly, "All right, we'll do it. But I don't just like winning. I crave it. I challenge any takers." Fine. You want competition? Jamie clapped as energy surged through the room like electric pulses. I'm ready. As the stakes rapidly rose, I felt myself drawn into the fray, neither wanting to back down nor wanting to hold on to the brittle remnants of my earlier defenses. Wait, what's the challenge? I asked, keeping my voice even. Julian grinned that infuriatingly gorgeous smile. An ice hiking competition. You have to reach the peak first, and I'll strategically place Lord knows what along the way to see who cracks first. And then back down to this cozy cabin? Sam raised an eyebrow. I'm suddenly more interested in this challenge. I'm in, I announced, my competitive spirit fueling the fire. What's the prize? Julian leaned closer, his breath brushing against my ear. The winner gets to decide the next activity for the group. Not vague at all, Jamie giggled. Let's raise that bar higher. Naturally, the losers must participate in karaoke. Let's make it a duet, I proposed, locking eyes with Julian, attempting to cut through the tension I felt spiraling silently between us. It'll be a howling good time. I'll hold you to that, he shot back, a touch too serious for my liking. The quarter's air shifted, thickening with anticipation, as if the universe itself held its breath for whatever next would transpire. We were out on the glacier early the following morning, the chill biting at our exposed skin, as the icy expanse spread before us like an ethereal dreamscape. But what was captivating held its own peculiar challenges, and the routines of our expedition melted away beneath the weight of unspoken challenges and motivations. Who knew you'd look so good in silver? Julian teased, his eyes glimmering at the sight of me in hiking gear that shimmered against the icy backdrop. I rolled my eyes, feeling the unusual pulse of warmth creep up my cheeks. "Flattery won't carry you far on this challenge." He smirked, adjusting his gear, the contours of his arms through the fabric, both exhibiting strength and a deep-seated softness. "Well, if it elevates your competitive spirit, then flattery it is." We set off, a cacophony of boots crunching through the frost. I could hear Sam and Jamie's banter behind us, but Julian quickly claimed the space between us. "Zara," he called, summoning me to the front. "Keep up." "Isn't the goal to test limits?" I challenged, a playful determination igniting within me. "Why the rush?" "I want to see your true capabilities," he replied, the intensity of his gaze threading its way between the silences we hadn't addressed yet. "Do you think you've reached then?" "I'm not here to impress you," I shot back, my breath mist swirling in the frigid air. "I'm going to prove I'm just as good as you. There's nothing you can do to hold me back." A mischievous smile crossed his face, and he unexpectedly lunged forward, pressing his body against mine. "Then try to keep it that way." His presence overwhelmed me as I stumbled backward, my heart racing. "Are you allowed to do that?" His voice dipped low, teasing the edges of my resolve. "Not if I want you to win." The crisp winds might have tried to challenge the intimacy of the moment, but they only added to the vibrant chaos swirling between us. I could feel the heat radiating between our glances, drawing me closer to the precipice of vulnerability we had both been carefully tiptoeing around. Just as I regained my footing, I caught sight of the jagged rock formations creeping toward us, branches of ice protruding menacingly against the vivid blue sky. They cut through the horizon like swords drawn in defiance of the chilly atmosphere. "Should we pace ourselves?" Jamie called out, her voice pricking the balloons of tension between Julian and me. "Nonsense," Julian declared as he bounded ahead with an agility I found both infuriating and magnetic. "Stay sharp. We traverse as a team." But an unexpected tripping hazard, an unseen crevice buried beneath a shallow layer of snow, threw off my equilibrium, and suddenly I was flailing for support, desperately clutching the nearest handhold. Julian turned just in time to catch me, his grip firm and reassuring. "Zara," he exclaimed, half teasing, half worried. "Were you trying to take the easy route?" As his laughter mingled with mine, I stood there, heart racing and breathless from the sheer contradiction of delight and fear that always flared around him. "Yes, Julian, I thought the ice would embrace me." His laughter echoed beautifully in the wilderness as he lowered me back to solid footing. "Oh, I'll make sure it means to hold you tightly if you fall again." We continued our trek, but I felt the warmth of his hand lingering near mine, searing into my senses as my heart quickened with a reality I could no longer deny. Each challenge would push us closer, and as competitive adrenaline surged, I felt the pull towards him shift beyond mere rivalry. As we reached the summit, the panoramic views of glaciers sprawling endlessly under the sinking sun captivated our breaths, creating a temporary pause from the enveloping chaos. Yet beneath the surface, something simmered, a pressing tension, a yearning for something we'd both been carefully avoiding. "I'll claim victory," Julian announced dramatically, standing at the peak like a conquering hero. "What's your last defense?" "Let's just stretch the definition of victory," I replied, my voice steady even as enduring vulnerabilities resurfaced. "Because winning this may not mean what you think. Are you prepared to face the consequences of that victory, Julian?" His brow arched, intrigue replacing mirth. "Oh, I'm very curious as to what you plan for me. Just remember that you asked for it." The laughter between us slowly faded, replaced by unacknowledged awareness as the winds roared like forgotten souls, wrapping around us in a haze of chaos. We were on the brink of something significant. Between competition, longing, and the overwhelming pull of attraction, the boundaries began to blur, entwining our fates in ways we couldn't yet comprehend. Descending was as treacherous as the climb had been, and I was acutely aware of Julian watching my every move. He didn't need the distraction of others. His attention was like a lighthouse guiding me through the stormy nature of our daily life. The night descended rapidly, swallowing the sun, and somehow, amid the cacophonies of biting cold and rising emotions, I sensed the inevitable pull towards something equally terrifying and thrilling, waiting for us on the horizon. As we stumbled in laughter down the icy decline, the chaos erupted with every misstep, every tease and press of our bodies against the biting air, hearts racing with the thrill of almost falling. And I knew then, this was but the first of many limits we would test together, and the consequences of victory may be far more rewarding than either of us could have imagined. Was I prepared for the depths that awaited? The echoes that would keep reverberating long after karaoke? I smirked, leaning toward him, our shoulders brushing together. He had no idea what he'd unleashed. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. Chapter 13. Snowstorm Confessions. The ship creaked and groaned like an old man struggling against an impending storm, each sound ricocheting off the polished mahogany walls of the observation deck. My fingers ran over the cool metal railing where I stood, gazing out at the swirling snowflakes that danced chaotically against the icy backdrop of Antarctica. The satellite TV had just lost signal, and a silent siege had begun as the weather turned fierce. With us both trapped under the eerie glow of the overhead lights, the ship became a capsule of unuttered thoughts and hidden emotions. Looks like we're stuck, Dr. Dunbar. Julian's voice sliced through the pregnant silence, his tone laced with an easy charm that made me both want to laugh and throw something at him. He leaned casually against the wall, arms crossed, his sharp features outlined by the soft light, yet there was turbulence beneath his demeanor. I could sense it threading through the air like static before a storm. Stuck? You're saying this like it's a picnic. I fought to sound light, to deflect the increasing tension swelling within me. We're miles from shore, Julian. This is an isolated deck in the middle of nowhere. Lovely. He stepped closer, the long shadows from the overhead lights creating a mosaic of vulnerability and authority across his face. I think we both know it's not the snow we're avoiding. Wow, profound. Who knew you had it in you? I shot back, crossing my own arms in defiance. He arched a brow, taking a step into my personal space. I could smell the faint hint of cedarwood from his cologne, a scent I had come to associate with him, comforting yet altogether dangerous. Is that really how you want to play this? The words hung in the air, charged and expectant. I opened my mouth to retort, but was cut off by the sudden jolt of the ship as the snowstorm raged outside. It swayed like an unsteady dancer, and I stumbled, instinctively reaching out for the railing again. Careful! Julian caught my elbow, steadying me, his touch igniting questions in my mind. Did he care? Or was this just another calculated move in his game of control? Right, because you're so concerned about my safety, I said, pulling away from his grasp, the heat of embarrassment creeping into my cheeks. Last I checked, you've been sabotaging my work. His expression hardened, the warmth of charm quickly evaporating, leaving behind the chill of confrontation. It wasn't personal, he said, his voice low but unwavering. You think you understand what's at stake here? Clearly I don't. I shot back, stepping closer. Defiance or desire, I couldn't tell anymore. You've hidden everything from me, Julian. Do you even know how much that hurts? The challenge in my voice evoked a tumultuous mix of passion and unresolved tension as we circled each other like predators caught in their own personal wilderness. The space between us vibrated with unspoken things, layers of complexities that felt like a symphony of emotions demanding to be acknowledged. I was trying to protect you, he replied, a flicker of vulnerability surfacing before he could cage it back behind his defenses. Because you're special, you have the potential to change everything. Or destroy it, I countered. What if I fail? What if I can't deliver whatever it is you want me to discover? I'm not some. I waved my hands to emphasize my point, the familiar doubt eating at the corners of my confidence. You're more than that, Julian stepped forward, his voice rising slightly with a fervor I had rarely seen from him. You don't see what I see. You're already changing the conversation in academia with your determination. But this isn't just research. This is about legacy. My family's future changes depending on what you discover. The tension between us thickened, each word a double-edged sword. Yet, despite our headwinds, a part of me reveled in the heated exchange. And what about what I want? I pressed, the urgency of my question hanging between us like the flurries outside. Are you willing to let me help? Julian's voice softened, wrapped in a probability I wasn't ready to face yet. Before I could respond, the ship lurched violently again, pitching us toward one another, our bodies mere inches apart. Zara, he exclaimed, catching my shoulders, steadying me with a grip that felt both possessive and protective. I could see the storm reflected in his eyes, swirling with all our unresolved tensions, a tempest of ambition, fear, and desire that roared just beneath the surface. And there we were, inches apart, vast worlds hidden within those fractured moments. You want to be strong, but being strong means letting someone in, Julian murmured, a breath away from me, and the sincerity of his words sent a shiver down my spine, settling deep within me. With a fierce clarity, I whispered back, "Then show me." In one sweeping motion, as though the world around us dimmed and isolated into a singular reality, he drew me closer. Our lips met, a tentative brush that ignited ferocity. The kiss grew relentless, a soft intensity pouring from the core of our conflict, the tactics of silence shattering before palpable need. The heat of his body melded with mine, igniting every nerve ending, a swirl of emotions, half-formed thoughts, bursting into life as we explored uncharted territories between us. Zara, he murmured between kisses, slipping his hands into my hair, urging me deeper. Everything I've done was for you. Then stop hiding, I breathed against his mouth, the words dissolving in the heat of the moment, the taste of winter and longing intermingling. Just then, a loud thud jolted us apart, our moment of intimacy interrupted by the raucous laughter of our friends, echoing through the deck's sliding door. Leela, always full of bravado, was standing with her hands on her hips, flanked by Calvin and Naima. Well, did we walk in on something special? The laughter rolling through the air, light yet pointed, injected a current of electricity into our embrace. I could feel heat creeping into my cheeks, and I shot a glance at Julian, who looked unfazed, but his eyes sparkled with mischief. How long do you think we can eavesdrop? Calvin asked, unable to contain his amusement. Long enough to know it's definitely too cold to not invite ourselves in, Leela replied, a playful smirk dancing on her lips. Amidst the teasing, the tension beneath the surface swirled hotter than the storm raging outside, anchoring me to Julian, tethering us in a moment of levity. Yet the gravity of our connection refused to be dismissed. Why don't you join us? I suggested, trying to sound nonchalant as I felt my heart racing, a thrilling rush mingling with vulnerability. Join you? Oh, assume the position? Naima winked, grinning at both of us as they made themselves comfortable on the observation deck loungers. We're all friends here. Seems we have a snowstorm to keep us occupied. Leela plopped down beside Naima, grinning widely, while Calvin settled across from Julian, clearly enjoying the newfound dynamics swirling in the air. With plenty of hot chocolate, right? I shared a relieved glance with Julian, the familiarity of our friends momentarily easing the quaking tension. It felt as though the laughter was knitting together the last frayed edges of our explosive connection. In this sanctuary of camaraderie, the storm would fade, just as the simmering argument had transformed into tenderness, cloaked in the warmth of shared joy. All right then, hot chocolate, Julian declared, breaking the intimate tension and embracing the chaos like a maestro with strings. But only if it comes with extra marshmallows. Make it a double, And you've got a deal, Leela chimed in, her eyes sparkling, her laughter infusing the air with mischief. As Julian headed to the galley for supplies, the laughter continued to echo against the ice-laden winds outside, ripping through the air like a siren's call. I remained on the deck, still tethered to the moment we almost seized, yet recognizing a shift. There, amongst the laughter and the warmth of friendship, I felt the veil of insecurities lifting between Julian and I. Perhaps this was just a pause in our unfolding drama, a brief interlude before the inevitable reckoning of our heartbeats began again. But as I leaned against the railing, the snow swirling wildly outside, a thought settled within me. The chaos surrounding us, this tempest of ambition, longing, and surprise, was merely a shadow of the greater adventure awaiting us. And while storms may sweep the skies, it was within the confines of uncertainty that I felt the thrill of discovery. Not just of the world met beneath the frosted horizon, but in the labyrinth of my own heart. As laughter mingled with the snow's gentle flurry, I allowed myself a quiet understanding. They say love conquers all, but the truths we reveal amidst the chaos, that is where heartfelt bravery truly begins. Chapter 14. Confronting Manipulations. I stood at the observation deck of the Aurora, staring out at the boundless expanse of crystalline ice under the midnight sun. The shimmering landscape, a panorama of contrast, the brutal rawness of nature meeting the delicate beauty of light, mirrored my turmoil. Here, amid the icy wilderness, a storm simmered not just in the swirling snow beyond, but inside me, threatening to break through the facade I had carefully crafted. "Zara," Julian's voice sliced through the silence, rich and curious like warm honey drizzled over a cold, hard truth. He stepped beside me, his presence a magnetic pull I couldn't quite resist. "What are you lost in?" I turned to him, feeling the weight of his gaze. It felt like a spotlight, illuminating everything I had been burying under exhaustion and fervor. His tailored jacket hugged his frame, an embodiment of his intelligence and allure, yet beneath that polished exterior lay a darkness I couldn't shake. "I'm trying to figure out how you managed to sabotage your way to success, Julian." He chuckled softly, shaking his head, a playful grin hinting at his well-practiced charm. "You're so certain I have a secret agenda. What if I'm just a charming rogue on an adventure?" "Charming rogue?" My brow arched, skepticism lacing my tone. Charming doesn't involve deceit, especially not in academia. I hesitated, the frost outside suddenly feeling alive, vibrating with hidden truths. "It's not just about me, is it? It's not as innocent as it seems." He leaned closer, the warmth of his body contrasting sharply with the cold air around us. "You think I'm manipulating things for my gain? What if it's more complicated than that?" His expression morphed into something I recognized, the intensity of a predator that had done the calculations. "What if I'm protecting something, someone?" And there it was, his elusive charm unraveling just enough to reveal flashes of the obsession beneath. I took a step back, pulling the fresh sea-scented air into my lungs. "Someone or something?" "Do you trust me, Zara?" he asked, his voice dropping to a serious timbre that drew me closer despite my resolve. Each word was a deliberate move, tracing a precarious line between intimacy and intimidation. A rush of anticipation rushed through me, tangled with uncertainty. "Trust is hard when you're not being entirely honest," I shot back, my heart pounding like a wild drum. "What do you want me to say?" he challenged, leaning against the railing with enough casualness to betray the storm brewing in his eyes. "Do you want me to admit I've been diverting your competitors' paths?" "Yes," my voice crested with desperation, echoing my rising fear. "Because that's a serious thing, Julian. You've been playing a game, and I don't know if I want to be a piece on your board." And then his eyes lit up, not with anger, but a fierce intensity as if he were seeing the world anew. "This isn't a board game. My family's life is at stake, and your research could solve everything. I'm betting on you." The passion of his words reverberated off the ice, peeling back layers of anger and fear. You bring something into the world I need, Zara. I need you. Why are you so obsessed with saving your legacy? I challenged, partly probing, partly needing to understand if his motives were pure or tainted by desperation. Because what I carry is more than just my name. He stepped closer, and the space between us crackled with something darker. Don't you see? It's about love, for my family, for our story. I thought you understood that. Love? I repeated, skepticism rising, mixing with the heat of attraction at the proximity of his body. Is this really love, Julian, or just manipulation? The air around us thickened, charged with anticipation. His gaze softened, but the flame of conviction remained. You're different, Sarah. You have the power to change everything. I needed a guardian angel to light the way, and I chose you. In that moment, the world snapped around us, the ice disappearing as if dissolved by his words. My heart raced, caught between admiration for his fervor and the sinuous threads of deceit he had woven around me. You think using me as a pawn is love? My voice quivered, torn between passion and repulsion. Before I could step back, he surged forward, grasping my arm gently, capturing the moment, a lightning strike of urgency and desire flooding our shared space. No, listen. He leaned in, his breath warm against my skin, stealing my focus. You're the queen in this game. I'm only giving you the pieces which you deserve. Julian? But the rest of the thought wafted away, suspended in the air as the distance between us evaporated. His lips crashed into mine, a storm whirling around the warmth of his mouth, claiming my hesitance. Every sigh drowned out by the beating of my heart. He pulled me close as if we could drown out the world with this singular moment of truth and passion. Jules? A voice interrupted, pulling us from the intoxicating bliss. It was Kai, our friend with a penchant for comedic timing, his oversized fleece poll and tousled curls bursting into the scene with reckless abandon. Am I interrupting a session of deeply philosophical love and manipulation? Because I can duck out. I pulled back, embarrassment flooding my cheeks. Julian shot Kai an annoyed glance, while I stepped away, breathless and discombobulated. Not now, Kai, Julian retorted, frustration flooding his tone. But Kai wouldn't back down. He leaned against the railing, arms crossed, a playful grin lingering. Look, I was just wondering, how do you two manage to avoid the inevitable ice melt when it comes to all this heat? I mean, it's going to be a problem for you, Julian. Very funny, Julian replied, exhaling through his nose. This is serious. Relax, Kai laughed. Serious can be comedic too. Just like how Zara here is plotting her escape from this charming rogue, he said, winking at me, but with affection, not malice. What's next? An artful escape into the icy wilderness? A chuckle bubbled from Julian, tension easing as he rubbed a hand down his face. If things keep going this way, maybe I should just join her, he teased, leaning back as if sizing up the vast emptiness around us. No, seriously, what's next with the expedition? Kai pressed, his demeanor shifting, earnest now. I heard from Sam that the next leg of the journey involves a rock formation that might yield some stunning finds. You two should go. Should we? I quipped, eyeing Julian, bracing for his response. My emotions swirled like the snow falling outside, boundless beauty tarnished with shadows of doubt and desires. Julian flashed that knowing smile, the one that promised more than just exploration. It offered adventure, vulnerability, and a hint of his troubling motives that still shadowed our every encounter. We will, right? He turned to me, that slight tilt in his head imploring, no, demanding. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be the beloved pawn in his game or carve out my own path. The ice beneath us felt as fragile as the complicity of our relationship. Laughter coursed through the deck as if coaxing me into the unknown. Laughter is the balm, Kai quipped, easing the intensity. Why not lean into it? Just go explore the south face of the glacier, then come back, and you can interrogate each other while braiding the ice into a romantic frosty sculpture. Deal? Deal, Julian laughed, that spark lighting beneath the surface tensions, a promise of intensity lingering in the air. "All right," Kai announced. "Let's gather supplies before the ice melts under all this tumultuous passion, shall we?" As they fumbled through the supplies, I felt my heart swell. Yes, there was chaos, and certainly complications. But there was also impending excitement. Maybe through the juxtaposition of love and suspicion, there was enough heat amid the ice to thaw the barriers within. I turned to Julian, my heart still drumming a haphazard rhythm. "You'd better pack wisely, Julian. If we're tackling the Antarctic together, we might just need each other's strength and trust more than ever." A fleeting look passed between us. A shared uncertainty mingled with hope as we navigated this treacherous terrain. Love and ambition, mistrust and desire, all bundled in one complicated existence. "What do you think?" he asked, his voice low now, smoldering, his demeanor shifting back into that intoxicating magnetism. "Can we face the frozen wilderness and whatever awaits beyond it?" I took a deep breath, and in the distance through the windows of the observation deck, the icy edge shimmered promisingly. "Only if we face it together," I murmured, resolute in both my ambition and my desire, ready for the adventure ahead. Chapter 15. Legacy Revealed. The deck of the Aurora Explorer was silent, save for the occasional crunch of snow underfoot and the distant clap of ice fracturing against the hull. A frozen expanse surrounded us, a world clad in white beneath a treacherous sky, veiled in shifting clouds that masked the frigid sun. The wind, icy fingers tugging at my hair, summoned a shiver that wasn't entirely due to the temperature. I stood alone, overlooking the churning sea, my heartbeat a steady drum in an unyielding silence. "Zara." Julian's voice sliced through the frosty air, rich and low, breaking the spell of solitude. Turning, I came face to face with him, his dark skin contrasting the pallor of our surroundings, a stark reminder of warmth amid the cold. He moved toward me with an unsettling elegance, each step purposeful, a hint of a storm brewing behind his sharply contemplative gaze. I faltered slightly, the tension thickening the air between us like the layers of ice clinging to the ship. "I thought you were with the team," I shot back, feigning indifference, though I couldn't hide the tremor of anticipation that rippled through me. They were discussing fabrication processes for the Antarctic sampling, hardly riveting. He shifted closer, a spark igniting the space between us, the warmth of his body almost palpable against the chill. I clenched my jaw, fighting the magnetic pull towards him. "Maybe you could pretend to care," I teased, the sarcasm edging toward playful. "Pretend? No, but I'm far more interested in your thoughts on the third artifact." His eyes narrowed slightly, curiosity gleaming in their depths, a dangerous mix of intensity and something I dared not name. "The third artifact," I echoed, my pulse quickening. "Or is it your third attempt to sidestep this argument?" He smirked, his lips curling in that infuriatingly charming way. "Are you claiming the high ground? I know a few secrets about your project that could change your entire framework." "You're not being very subtle, Julian." The laughter faded from my voice, tension tightening my throat. Because I knew the secrets he was hinting at, the truths about his legacy, ones he'd kept buried beneath layers of ambition and deceit. "Because subtlety isn't our strong suit," he replied, fixing me with a look that was both penetrating and warm. The underlying desire was electric, the air thick with unresolved tension, sparked by unvoiced emotions. "What do you want from me, Julian?" I demanded, tossing my hair up as a shield, shielding my vulnerability beneath its dark sway. "To see how far I'll bend, how much I'll sacrifice for clarity, for understanding." Julian stepped forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I want to protect you, Zara, but secrets breed chaos. Just tell me what's holding you back." My breath caught. For a fleeting moment, the glacial wind melted away and my walls wavered. "You think it's that simple?" I took a step back, the gulf widening. "You're speaking like you care, but your past treads on thin ice. You're hiding something, and I can't stand in the shadows of it. Then step closer to the light. His challenge rang out, fierce and honest, sparking the fire in my gut. Fear is a prison. You must choose to escape. I swallowed hard, and for a moment, images of my life flashed through my mind. My research, my ambitions, all cultivated from a burning curiosity that often felt incongruent with my growing feelings for him. I can't just forget why I'm here, I whispered, my voice barely above the wind. This project, it's my chance to establish my legacy. Your legacy? His brow furrowed, an urgent intensity shadowing his features. What if that legacy became something greater? Something vastly more valuable than a title in an academic journal. His eyes dropped slightly, a stormy complexity flickering beneath the surface. What if it's a chance for you to change lives? Are you trying to sell me an inspiring message or manipulate my goals? He took another step, and I could feel his breath against my skin, warm against the cold. Why does it have to be one or the other? If you only knew what lay ahead for you and me, what we could do together. And what about your family's legacy? I shot back, converting defensiveness into daring curiosity. What's at stake for you, Julian? A flicker of something dark crossed his expression, and the area between us felt charged, an oscillating balance of truth and deceit. The simple touch sent ripples through my resolve. But you need to trust me. We're on the precipice of something extraordinary. Extraordinary? Or dangerous, I challenged, although doubt started to flutter in the wreckage of my own ambitions. Both, he answered, his voice dropping again to that tender sincerity that pulled me closer. But the real danger lies in staying stagnant when the world is begging for change. We could create something together. The icy air swirled around us, filling the moments of silence with unspoken vows. I could see it in his eyes, the raw vulnerability that lay beneath the charming bravado. There was a tsunami of desire, a crashing wave that begged for a release from the built-up tension. Just as our mouths were inches apart, the crew strolled onto the deck, their laughter ringing through the air like chimes against a quiet night. It shattered our bubble, cast sunlight where shadows had flourished. "Hey, lovebirds!" one shouted, her voice cheerful, slicing through the intensity, reminding me suddenly of our dual realities. "We've got a game of charades happening in the lounge. You two should join." With a reluctant step back, I broke the moment, a flush creeping up my cheeks. "Perfect timing. I guess some things have to wait," Julian replied, a well-constructed mask sliding back into place, still reflecting the corners of his guarded heart. Despite the overt cheer, I felt the distance emerge again, like thick walls re-erecting around our fragile connection. But as the crowd grew around us, laughter mingling with tension, I sensed I could not continue on this path of uncertain connections, both thrilling and alarming. Julian and I stood on the brink, a force of nature fueled by ambition, power, and the necessity of connection. "Zara," he whispered, pulling me back slightly into his orbit, his eyes searching mine, set ablaze, risk hung in the air. "No matter where this goes, just remember, you hold the key." "My key or not, I'm not ready to let your past dictate my future," I shot back, even as my body yearned to close the distance again. With a promising smirk, he took a step back, hands up in mock surrender, even as the longing between us crackled like ice beneath the ship. "Then let's discover it together." As we headed toward the warmth of companionship and conflict, I felt the weight of legacy merge with desire, an unfurling path we would have to navigate together over the icy expanse. This was only the beginning, and yet deep within, secrets and desires churned, waiting to erupt. Chapter 16. The Betrayal. "Do you even know how reckless you are being?" Julian's voice cut through the low hum of the ship, sharp as the ice crunching beneath us. We stood in the sleek lounge, expansive windows offering a panoramic view of Antarctica's stark beauty. The snow-capped cliffs glistening under the weak sunlight like shards of shattered glass. My heart pounded in my chest, nearly drowning out the whispers of the Arctic landscape. I crossed my arms, my breath fogging the glass beside me. I'm being reckless? You've been sabotaging my competitors for years. You can't just control my situation. I'm not some piece on your chessboard, Julian. The air between us crackled with electricity, swirls of tension gliding through the well-worn patterns of our lives on this ship, caught in an endless push and pull of ambition and desire. I'm protecting you, he insisted, the fierceness in his eyes tempered by a vulnerability that tugged at my defenses. This is about more than just academia, Zara. Have you ever thought that I might be trying to keep you safe from? From who, Julian? The people I've dedicated my career to proving wrong? I stepped closer, the warmth of his body a stark contrast to the chill radiating from outside. You think hiding the truth will protect me? It's suffocating, and I won't have it. A heavy silence loomed between us, filled only by the distant thrum of the engines and the soft creak of the ship as it navigated through the icy expanse. Just then, a gust whipped past the hull, rattling our moment, but it was oh so fitting, an echo of our own storm. The ship's intercom crackled and interrupted, announcing the night's scheduled entertainment, but my focus remained solely on Julian. You need to understand what's at stake here, he murmured, recalling that familiar intensity that had drawn me to him in the first place. If this data leaks, this isn't just about our research, I shot back. It's about me reclaiming my life, my choices. Nothing you do can change that. As if summoned by our argument, my friend Malik strolled into the lounge, his jovial laugh floating in on the tail of a joke. Someone's sure making waves in the good old Arctic. What's the topic? Ice fishing? Because it's getting chilly in here. He winked, tossing a casual grin our way. Malik, this is serious, I snapped, struggling to rein in my frustration. It's not about ice fishing. Julian's shoulders relaxed only slightly, but I recognized his annoyance at being interrupted. Maybe we should take a breather, he suggested, not quite masking his irritation. No, let's talk about it. I want to hear both of your perspectives. Malik leaned against the bar, a playful expression riding his features, but the concern behind his enthusiasm was palpable. I feel like I'm on some terrible reality show where the bossy competitor won't listen. I rolled my eyes, the tension of the debate momentarily eased by Malik's light-hearted jab. That's rich coming from the queen of keeping her head in her textbooks. Julian flashed an exasperated grin. But really, Malik, do you think it's wise to get involved in our personal affairs? This isn't your typical lounge gossip. Oh, come on. Where's the fun in that? I'm just here for the jokes and the show. Malik grinned, swinging his head to me and lowering his voice conspiratorially. Besides, you guys are intentionally dramatic. It's like a soap opera, and who doesn't love a bit of scandal? I couldn't hold back my laughter, and it felt so liberating amidst our clash. Right? I mean, we've got icebergs and unresolved tension. How exciting. And betrayal, Julian chimed in with a smirk, but his eyes darkened with a weight I could never quite decipher. Okay, fine, I conceded, the tension shifting. I will admit, something dramatic could make this trip all the more interesting. Malik clasped his hands. Now we're talking. Let's plot a scheme. Zara, you distract while Julian prepares the getaway. He punctuated the line with a wink, and I half expected him to pull out a fake spy gadget. Can we focus, please? Julian interrupted, but his mouth twitched with a suppressed grin. I have serious concerns about how this whole situation is spiraling, and, before he finished, a sudden crash rocked the ship, sending a flurry of ice dust cascading from the overhead lights. Instinctively, I reached for Julian's arm, the warmth of his bicep grounding me as he pulled me closer in a protective gesture. What was that? I asked, heart racing as the ship swayed again beneath me. I shot an alarmed look around the lounge, and it didn't take long for my anxiety to morph into something heavier, sensed all around us. It sounded like it came from lower deck, Malik shouted, eyes wide. We should check it out. Or prepare for battle, Julian murmured, looking at me with a mixture of intensity and steely resolve. Stay close, Zara. We descended the narrow staircase, Julian a step ahead, instinctively shielding me with his body against the dim clatter echoing from below. Cold air wafted around us, each step creeping my heart toward my throat, an ominous thrill coursing through my veins. Down on the lower deck, the atmosphere shifted from cozy luxury to something ominous. An eerie silence enveloped us, the detritus of ice and water scattered across the floor like remnants of battle. Where was everyone? Is it supposed to be this quiet? I whispered, glancing nervously at Julian, who scanned the area with a calculating gaze. Looks like something went wrong. Stay sharp. His voice was low, and I bit my lip, uncertainty threatening to edge in. Guys, I think I found something. Malik's exuberant voice suddenly sliced through the tension, and we turned to see him kneeling beside what appeared to be a package, scrunched and displaced from wherever it should have been stored. Don't touch it, Julian barked, but Malik, ever drawn to mystery, had already unraveled it partially. I just want to see what it is. Maybe it's treasure. What if it's explosives? My voice rose, swirling around us like the ice decorating the ship's exterior. Julian stepped closer, forcing himself into my line of sight. Zara, relax. We need to be cautious. I can be cautious. Malik's the one being reckless. I shot back at him, both of us thrusting back against the insecurities of trust, while uncertainty circled like a hawk. Malik blinked at us, puzzled but unwavering in his curiosity. Oh, lighten up. Breaks are nice, but adventure is better. What's more exciting than an unknown package? He opened it wider, and my heart dropped at the sight of ledgers spilling out, the pages yellowed and inked in half-faded, authoritative script. No, I breathed, recognition dawning. This was stolen from the research department of... I hesitated, remembering the implications of what it meant. I shot Julian a frantic look. This could ruin everything. Academically, politically, what are we supposed to do? Julian's face went stone cold, his eyes narrowing as realization dawned, and he pulled me close. We need to think fast, he said, urgency sharp in his tone. This needs to be reported. As he looked back to Malik, a voice mixed with sudden horror screamed from above, a thunderous crash echoing across the hull. We all jumped, fear igniting a wild adrenaline rush. The ship bucked again, rattling the very walls. With primal instinct, Julian grabbed my wrist, tugging us toward the hastily retreating staircase. Come on, he urged, urgency in every word, as we stumbled back toward the entrance, Malik hot on our heels. What's happening? Malik shouted, a mix of confusion and fear in his voice. Hang on, Julian commanded as he pushed through the door. But just then, an explosion of light from above filled the passage as the ship trembled around us. A horrified shout erupted, the chaos becoming a cacophony that seemed it could drown me. With impulsive instinct, I reached out to Julian, who turned, a fierce protectiveness flooding his face. The room shook again, throwing us against the wall, while harsh reality flickered in and out like the ice-choked blizzards outside, insistent and demanding. We're not staying here. We need to warn everyone, I pleaded as I fought against his hold, determined to ground us amid the panic spiraling around us. My heart raced uncontrollably, not just from fear but from the potent proximity of our energy, the fierce pull of the moment, echoing with potential chaos, conflict, and maybe something else entirely. Then we get out of here, Zara, now. He pulled me closer, shielding me as we pushed through the tumbling chaos, adrenaline igniting something much deeper, something barely controlled. A sudden warmth enveloped us as we stumbled out of the deck and into the brisk air above the ship. We hurried toward the railing, catching glimpses of fellow passengers scurrying below deck. I watched in horror as Malik darted towards them, over my protests. Malik, get back here, I shouted. Stop him, Julian commanded, catching my arm. We can't lose our head, not now. This is not happening, Julian, I breathed out, fighting against my rising panic, but he leaned into my urgency, a protective barrier against the whirlwind. Zara, listen, focus on me. His voice transformed, becoming transfixed, with an intensity that sent warmth cascading over me despite the icy wind biting at my skin. Cut it out with the gaze, we need to act, I fired back, the urgency pushing toward a climax. You can't waver now. I'm not wavering, he insisted, leaning closer, his breath mingling with mine, the intimacy igniting. But we need a plan, and all we have is this moment. My heart raced, realization dawning, electrifying the air. I glanced up at him, painfully aware of the power between us, like a frayed rope threatening to snap. What if we choose this moment, Julian? Not just for survival, but what if we just embraced it? He hesitated, a flicker of something in his eyes that sparked the void between us, igniting every unsaid word. The ship rocked beneath us, splinters crackling against the hummed tension. Then he surged closer, shielding me entirely, as if the world had simplified down to just us. If we're going to survive, Zara, we can't lose focus. Focus, I echoed, their word thick with layered meanings. We want a plan? His nod was reluctant, but the flicker of warmth grew between us. We have to implement it together. My pulse quickened as I pulled away, reconsidering everything that had brought us here. Then let's embrace every second, Julian. Zara, but time stood still, stilled by the storm raging outside and the one brewing between us. Julian moved inches from me, each breath drawing us closer, hearts frantically clashing in synchronized beats. The world collapsing until nothing remained but the tension lingering. No plans, I whispered, uncertainty blanketing us. Just you, just me. I want this, us, he breathed into my ear, the weight of truth in every syllable. And that moment, harsh edges softened by the intimacy still swirling between us, grounded me. Love found in chaos, a sudden resolve, igniting the forgetting of the potential disasters spinning just beyond our breath. Suddenly, the ship rocked again violently, returning us from a moment of reverie, fear clinging, and yet our hearts remained intertwined. Ready for adventure? I blurted humorlessly through shallow breaths. Julian grinned, his eyes alight with what felt like possibility. Ready. And as we collided in the frenzy of what lay ahead, it was more than the mission. It was the embrace of full surrender that made my heart race faster than the storm outside. Moments later, with sound and fury erupting from unseen corners, we plunged downward into the uncertain depths of our entangled lives, aboard the ship, in an icy standoff against whatever betrayal had been unveiled. Forgive me, Julian whispered. For everything. Maybe all is forgiven when love fights hard. I squeezed his hand, ready for whatever the chaos might bring, poised for whatever adventure lurked within the storms ahead. Chapter 17. Love Conquers All. With the hum of impending chaos as I stood in the galley of the Aurora, slicing through a crystalline block of ice with my knife. Each meticulous cut sending flecks spiraling like stars into the small stainless steel sink. Julian stood across from me, watching, his arms crossed, a fortress cloaked in lean muscle, his presence both a comfort and an agitation. The expedition was supposed to be about discovery, but here we were. Cloaked in the mundane, surrounded by the scent of fresh fish and the low rumble of conversation echoing through the corridors. Zara, he said, his voice breaking the silence like a shockwave. Could we just talk? I stilled, knife hovering midair, heart quickening. The way he leaned closer, brow furrowed, sent a ripple of tension through my core. About what? I asked, feigning nonchalance, though I could feel our surroundings slipping away, leaving just the two of us suspended in that moment. About everything, he replied, his gaze piercing through me. Like the bright, shiny secrets you kept, the ones about my competitors mysteriously falling off the map? My voice broke, the words sharper than I intended. He inhaled sharply, the silence lingering like a held breath between us. Zara, but my words rushed out before he could defend himself. What, you thought I'd be flattered, that I'd appreciate your little game of boosting my ego by eliminating the competition? You didn't know, not really. I didn't want you to get caught in that relentless tide, drowning before you even began. Drowning, the word hung, all-consuming. I slammed down the knife with more force than necessary, ice shattering into pieces that skittered across our workspace. You took my autonomy. Julian stepped forward but halted, shocked blue eyes shimmering with something deeply unsettled. No, I protected your potential. By playing God? I shot back. Julian, I came here for freedom, to carve out my own path, not to ride the coattails of some twisted agenda. The corridor beyond the galley buzzed with laughter. Our friends, Margot and Eli, their voices full of mischief, were organizing a surprise for us. We could hear the call of ice clinking against glasses. Zara, he broke his tone, urgency weaving through his voice. You think I did this for myself? You think I relish having you see me this way? There was something in his words, something vulnerable and raw, that pulled at the threads of my anger. So what was it for, Julian? Your family? Their legacy? He hesitated, and I could see the war within. It mirrored my own. It's about so much more than that, he breathed, the crack in his facade vulnerable, exposing something deeper. Like what? The weight of your last name? My heart raced, but with fury, passion contorted with pain. I don't want to suffocate beneath your expectations. He took a step closer, hands fisting at his sides, the tension coiling like a taut bowstring. You think I ever wanted you to be just some accessory? Zara, I want you to wield that potential with me. Sounds great. I rolled my eyes, sarcasm spilling out, but my heart ached for the truth tangled within his conviction. But how do I trust you, when you've already crossed so many lines? Trust? Is that really the issue? He laughed, low and pained. That's rich, considering you've built walls like fortresses. Because fortresses are safer than vulnerabilities. My voice flared, the heat cracking through the icy pretense, especially in a place like this. Fine, then let me tear them down. His voice boomed, echoing off the sterile galley walls, and for a moment I couldn't decipher whether the tension was anger or something deeper, something warmer. The vibrancy from the other room drifted in, a laughter-filled moment where Eli's voice cut through the chill. Keep it down in there, lovebirds. We don't want to disrupt the mood. There was laughter from Margot, and the sound pierced through me until everything inside felt charged. Our standoff, the stakes rising unfathomably high. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in something tangible. A small island amid unruly seas. You know, there's a fine line between protecting and controlling. Julian's eyes narrowed, but his breath steadied. Then maybe we both need to decide how to own the chaos between us, together. I dropped my knife, blade clattering, and closer to him, the insects in my stomach and the pull of gravity between our bodies heightened. A partnership built on secrets and deception? Maybe. It's also built on desire and ambition and tests I'd never dare compromise, he replied slowly, his eyes searching mine. His words hung in the air, suspended like the ice that surrounded us. Desire and ambition? My incredulity melted. He edged closer, the warmth emanating like an electric charge. It is possible to channel both, Zara, but not without risks. Embattled thoughts danced in my mind. I wanted to scream, to unleash how terrified I felt, to crush his guard beneath my fists. But instead, I found myself stepping closer, caught up in the moment against better judgment. What if I said I could take those risks? What if... Our eyes met, his level and steady, a lighthouse guiding me through churning waters. Then I hope you won't drown trying. His hand brushed my arm, electricity igniting our skin. You know I'd never let that happen. The vulnerability in his tone moved me, rocked me back and forth like waves. And then, laughter and muffled hollers from our friends flushed over us. An interruption, a breath break. But the air between us buzzed, crackling with unvoiced intentions. It's like trying to fly with both feet tethered to the ground, I murmured, more to myself than to him. I'd gladly cut the cords if it meant setting you free. His admission chilled me as much as it thrilled me, a stark reminder of how precarious our footing was. Tension hung heavy in the galley, and I could see the fight dissipate from his shoulders, replaced by something gentler, fiercer, a fierce protector who'd risk defying everything for me. What's the plan then, Captain? I murmured, my voice quavering, because it feels like we're on the edge of something monumental, and I'm not sure if the leap is worth it. His gaze never wavered. With you, it's always worth it. Before I could respond, he lunged at me, pressing me against the cool steel counter, his lips crashing into mine, the world melting into the background noises of laughter, drinks, crew members trailing excitedly past. The kissing was ferocious, feral, strips of urgency unraveling as his hands gripped my shoulders, arms banding around my waist, pulling me against him. I clung to his jacket, fingers digging into the soft fabric, the warmth of his body igniting me from the outside in. "Julian," I gasped between fevered kisses. "We can't." "Shut up," he murmured against my lips, exploring, tasting, stealing away my resolve. And somewhere beneath the scalding tension, closeness ignited a fervor that turned our argument into something blistering hot, a desperate embrace that transcended the chaos surrounding us. Our bodies collided in spirited passion, pushing, pulling, hands roaming feverishly, delight mingling with unspoken truths as he backed me against the counter. The crew's laughter felt distant, echoes reverberating through the din as I surrendered to him, to the moment. I could feel my defenses crumbling. The uncertainty wore away, and passion ignited instead, possessiveness curling around my heart. In the heat of his hold, I gasped, letting myself free fall into his greed for me. The stakes were high, but as I met his ravenous gaze between fervent kisses, I felt a clarity wash over me. Our destinies were braided tightly together, riddled with chaos and threads of love. And then he pulled back, breathless, searching my eyes as we both fought wild grins. "All right then. Deal?" "Deal," I murmured. With one final fierce kiss, he broke away, and we moved into the background of our vibrant friends, ready for the storm swirling outside, armed with something that might just conquer it all together. As laughter rang in my ears, I thought maybe, just maybe, love could weather any ice storms that dared to come our way. But then again, wouldn't it be fun to find out? "Let's go show them what we've got," I teased, a spark igniting again as I pulled him into the chaos, conquering the world together with love. Chapter 18. Aftermath of Betrayal. The brisk scent of sea salt clung to the air as I rinsed the last of the lab glassware in the expedition's small kitchen. Each clink of the glass echoed like a bell tolling over the disquiet that had shadowed me since the revelation of Julian's hidden maneuverings. I turned off the hot water and took a moment to breathe, the steam tangling with the icy chill creeping in from the Antarctic outside. In isolation, away from the chatter of the crew and the oppressive weight of this unsightly truth, I allowed myself the indulgence of frustration. "Zara," Julian's voice, heavy and warm like a silk cloak, broke the thick silence. He stepped into the room, the glow of the ship's overhead lighting amplifying the sharp angles of his features, while casting soft shadows across the determined lines of his face. I didn't turn to face him. Instead, I scrubbed harder at the last beaker, my knuckles turning white as I gripped the sponge. "What do you want, Julian?" I asked, the words spilling out like a harsh tide. "To talk," he replied, stepping closer, the cloying scent of his cologne mixing oddly with the antiseptic notes of the kitchen. "About us." "Us?" I parroted, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "What does that even mean anymore? You, the architect of betrayal, and me, the unsuspecting pawn?" He inhaled sharply at my words. There it was, the silence again, heavy, weighted, but between us, it was anything but comfortable. I could feel my heart racing, rapid and unfocused, as unresolved emotions collided, bursting into a flurry of resentment and longing. "Zara, it's not what you think," he began, his voice low, and it sent an electric thrill through me, despite the tumult brewing in my chest. He reached for my arm, but I jerked it away, the movement sharp as the crackling icebergs outside. "Not what I think? You've been orchestrating this entire expedition as if it were a grand plan meant solely for your gain," I said, the words spilling vehemently from my lips. "You kept me in the dark." Because I wanted to show you, Julian argued, his brow furrowing slightly. I wanted to give you everything you ever dreamed of in this field. To protect you from what you didn't understand was at stake. I scoffed, throwing my head back as if his words were a joke. Protect? You thought you were protecting me by undermining my research? By manipulating my competition? How noble of you. Zara. He stepped closer still, his tone shifting to something softer, more intimate. The stakes are higher than you know. You're not only brilliant, you're the key to solving a monumental issue facing my family. Something flickered in his blue-gray eyes, something earnest that both intrigued and terrified me. I took a step back toward the sink, searching for stability amidst the storm brewing between us. Your family? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. You've made this something so personal it's a nightmare that has nothing to do with me. Everything has to do with you, he said firmly. You're not understanding the breadth of this, the legacy of our... Stop trying to rationalize your treachery. I should have been part of that legacy naturally. A fervor in my voice propelled me across the distance. Instead, I've been an unknowing pawn in your game. I thought if I eliminated anyone who could possibly stand in your way. Did you have the right to decide that? To manipulate my path? I pressed, feeling the anger course through me like a firestorm. Yet beneath the surface, there was something deeper, a longing that I dared not voice. The silence returned, laden, taut between us like a drawn bowstring. I gazed at Julian, who stood there, every muscle tense and coiled, the remnants of his charm seeming almost foreign now. The memories of shared laughter on the deck, the evenings spent discussing our dreams in hushed tones, felt like a lifetime ago. You're not the only one who has aspirations, I continued, my voice now shaking, both with anger and an unshed vulnerability. I came here to escape feeling like a lesser version of myself. You knew that. Yet, you used your power to play God in my life? That's the betrayal. A flicker of something, regret, crossed his face, but the brave veneer did not falter as he took another step toward me. And I would do it all again if it meant I could protect you. If it meant we could discover something monumental together. Before I could respond, the door burst open behind us, and Whitney, my fellow researcher and unacknowledged voice of reason, stepped into the room. What's the status in here? I heard through the grapevine you two were throwing down in fiery debate. I shot Julian a warning glance, my stomach twisting at depicting our spat to wit. Just a casual discussion, Julian replied, his voice sliding effortlessly into the guise of charm he wore so well. Nothing to draw conclusions from. Whitney's eyebrows shot up. Right, because the air between you two is so... fluffy like a snowstorm, I quipped, my tone laced with irony. I leaned against the counter for support, trying to remain composed amidst the brewing tempest. Come on, you two. These lands are vast and wild. Adventure is only a storm away. Why are you fighting? Whitney pressed, unfazed by our unspoken tension. How about we bring this passion to a new hypothesis? I've got some incredible data from the glacier samples I'd love to explore. Data? Julian interrupted, as if the word had mechanics to distract him from the tumult brewing around us. Now you want to discuss that? I'd like to discuss something productive, I replied, my tone sharp as ice shards. I think we've had enough personal revelations for one day. Whitney looked between us, unperturbed by the raw emotional undercurrents. Come on, Zara. Julian's an ass sometimes, but what he did doesn't take away from your brilliance. You both just need to channel that volcano of energy into discovering the secrets of the ice. Work it out in the field, not in here over dirty dishes. As I opened my mouth to respond, the glimmer of smiles from her earlier words drew my attention. Whitney was right, and the urgency of our research beckoned me away from our bickering. Fine, I relented, turning towards her, but it would help if my pseudo-benefactor would stop lurking. I shot a glance back at Julian. Yeah, go ahead and try to charm the data out of the ice. Maybe I'll charm you, he countered lightly, but the tension remained. I rolled my eyes, but a surge of warmth crept through me. As if reading my thoughts, he slid closer, brushing my arms with his fingertips, igniting something deep within me that I had no intention of acknowledging. "Come on, let's go before the ice decides it's had enough of our drama," Whitney urged, ushering us along as she grabbed her gear from the counter. "Time's a-wasting." As we exited the small room, I walked beside Julian, acutely aware of the static hum thrumming in the space between us. "Now is not the time to talk," I whispered under my breath, determined to maintain this fragile bubble of civility, but his penetrating gaze made it hard to keep my footing. He leaned toward me, his lips merely grazing my ear, sending shivers down my spine. "Then maybe, seriously, don't." I pulled away, a smile feigned to mask my emotions. Laughter erupted from Whitney in front of us, her voice light and buoyant. "Shh, turn it down. You're both like a soap opera. Seriously, would you quiet down before we attract a real glacier?" "I'll attempt to give her the benefit of the doubt," Julian said dramatically, raising an eyebrow as he followed her lead. "Please do, and help me carry this," I said, grabbing the cooler of samples as we trekked out onto the deck. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue against the icy expanse, like tumultuous hearts that found peace only in storms. Yet as we moved as a trio toward our study space outside, or as I watched Julian navigate the world with that unshakable charm, I couldn't shake the growing clarity settling into me. Perhaps this whirlwind was just the beginning, and amidst the chaos, something deeper brewed. And as I glanced at him one last time, the intensity between us echoed, anchoring me amidst the uncertainty. The promises of our ambitions lay beneath the surface. If I were brave enough to confront this tumult together, I could emerge stronger than ever. "Zara, don't you dare run away from this." Julian's voice cut through my wavering resolve, grounding me in the moment. "We've just begun to break the ice." With that thought, I turned back, the icy thrum of our reality surrounding us like an electric embrace, the past weaving into the background. This was a beginning. "I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that." A few passengers gathered at the bar, exchanging laughter and camaraderie like a balm against the cold. I could hear fragments of their jokes, a hit-and-miss rhythm, fueled by the limitlessness of being here on the edge of the world. It was intoxicating. But I was not here for light-hearted banter or the thrill of rekindled adventures with strangers. My focus, always laser-sharp, was on my research, uncovering stories buried beneath layers of ice. I had come to this isolated haven, not only to understand the past, but to carve out my own legacy. Yet standing amid joy, the gnawing fear of fleeting love and ambition gnawed at my insides. "Zara," Julian's voice sliced through my thoughts like a warm knife through butter, a delicious promise of more. He approached, a specter in tailored gray against the bright backdrop, his presence electrifying the air around us. "What are you doing, daydreaming over there?" "Just contemplating the vastness of ice and ambition," I replied, pulling my cardigan tighter against the cold that wasn't entirely from the elements. "What are you plotting, Mr. Black?" His smile was cryptic, dancing on the edge of joviality and mischief. "Only the overthrow of my incessant competition," he said, leaning in, his breath hot and tantalizing against the frost-kissed air. "Care to assist?" Before I could respond, our companions, an eclectic band of fellow explorers led by Aisha, a spirited scientist with multicolored braids that bounced as she walked, bustled into the lounge, interrupting our moment. "Who's plotting what? I want in," she declared, her laughter contagious, brightening the atmosphere. "Just a little mischief," Julian smirked, his quick wit always sharp as a knife. I arched a brow, deliberately withholding my smile, but Julian's playful demeanor nudged at the corners of my resolve. The brilliant scientist I'd admired for years was transforming before my eyes. There was much more to him than secrets and schemes. "Count me in too." Aisha jumped on a stylish bar stool, beckoning others. "Let's stir the pot. We're stuck on a ship in the middle of frozen nothingness. Might as well spice it up." "Spice it up? Didn't we just have an incident of the ice cream incident yesterday?" Jonah piped up, brandishing a spoon like a scepter. He was gregarious, with whirlwinds of thoughts and quicksilver remarks that kept everyone on their toes. "We've already moved on from ice cream incidents," I replied, "to matters far more serious." The collective gaze fell upon me, curiosity piqued. Research, discoveries, the essence of human existence amidst icebergs. Blah, blah, blah. Get to the juiciness. Who is biting on the research fish? Fill us in, Aisha teased, her body leaning forward, eyes sparking with intrigue. Direct competitors, people fond of sabotage. I glanced at Julian, sensing the weight of shared knowledge.